Sit back and get ready to have the most fun you ever had with an electronic device.
Was Raymond a rookie that year?
I think he's got second year.
I think I had him on fantasy team.
I had Loudon Wainwright the third.
Loudon Wainwright.
He's pretty good.
Sure, for a guy named Loudon.
This show doesn't have enough obscure references.
That's our tag.
More obscure than a Dennis Miller routine.
All right, everybody, welcome out to the Logger Room. It is Wednesday, November 18th, 2020. Jersey Johnny coming at you. And with me, as always, are Mr. RadioPete and Mr. Harry Lug Nutz. Say hello, guys.
Hello, guys.
Hello, hello, hello.
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 How are you?
Doctor.
How are you? How is everybody on this fine day?
It's Wednesday.
Oh, it's
Does that mean anything anymore?
No, I don't think so.
Sure
Doesn't really, right?
It means I have to put my garbage cans out.
That's,
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. It does.
That means I don't.
I don't know. I actually have to put mine. I have to put my garbage cans on Monday nights and Thursday nights. So I can put mine out tomorrow night.
Oh.
Right. We're in the same boat, you and I.
There you go. There you have it. When do you have to put your garbage cans out? That's what we want to know. Comment in and let us know when you have to put your garbage out.
Yeah, we got to get a
question of the day.
Poll going that we will not decide what it is until the opening moments
Absolutely.
of the show.
That's right.
That's when we decide when.
There's a lot of options, though. Monday,
tons.
Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday.
You guys
Monday,
do it twice a week?
Wednesday, Saturday. That's another one.
Wednesday, Saturday.
Yeah.
Tuesday, Friday.
Only in New Jersey do you do garbage twice a week. Come on.
Twice a
No,
week.
twice a week, and then
Every other week.
recycling one day.
Recycling a day, yeah, because I got my recycling goes out Sunday night. I got to put my recycling out.
Yeah, this is definitely going to reel in the listeners.
Yeah, if you're not a fan,
come on.
then you're
You don't-
gone by now.
Harry, you
That's
don't remember you grew up in the same town as I did. You don't remember.
I do. I'm surprised there's recycling.
Yeah.
The only thing they used to recycle was the mayor.
This is true. This is true, and I'm not in that town anymore either. So, but in any event, we're going to talk some sports. We got a lot to talk about tonight. There's a ton going on, so let's kick it off with some football. Let's jump right in with the Giants again. I'm sure they made Harry very happy, winning. It's two in a row.
Yeah,
It's
they're on a heater. They're on the path to mediocrity.
Path to mediocrity.
A 4 to 5 win season and no chance at the top draft pick.
What did you say last week? It's like Groundhog Day. Got 7 more years of Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
Well, but here's the thing, and you guys are both Giant fans, so I'll ask you this question. Obviously, they're out of the Lawrence sweepstakes, right?
That's gone. Yeah.
So, but you have to say they're getting better, right? They're playing better.
Yeah.
We think Joe Judge is a good coach that is probably going to stick around for a while.
Sure.
So things seem to be improving. And I don't know. I'm not the best judge of football talent or anything. But all the quote unquote former player expert pundits say Daniel Jones has got the goods.
Yeah.
His turnovers are down. He's starting to play better. It's starting to come together. Now, I know, Harry, you're not a big fan of Daniel Jones. Don't think maybe that he'll ever be.
What pundits are you listening to?
Oh, I don't know. Some guys on the radio.
Yes.
Steve Young, I believe, was one of them.
Oh, yeah.
And Rex Ryan was another one.
Oh, so Rex Ryan, who definitely knows quarterbacks.
Well, listen, he's
If Daniel Jones has one
point
game
is
where he throws 3 interceptions, Rex Ryan will be telling you how
In the grand scheme of things, I would
But
hope
my
that
point
Rex
is-
Ryan knows more about quarterbacks than we do. But
I'm
that's
sure he knows
besides the
more about
point.
it than I do. But my point is, they're getting better. Isn't that what we want to see? Or are you so locked in that he's just never going to be the guy? And, you're right. We're stuck with him for 7 more years.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're off the respirator, but they're still in the hospital. And they're waiting for the
love
vaccine.
the analogies we got here.
Yeah. I mean, they're getting better. They can't get worse.
It's true.
I mean, I guess they could.
Well, they could get worse now.
Yeah. Now
They,
they can.
now they can get worse. They're a little better. Now they can get worse.
They're playing the NFC East, which is why they have a chance to win some games.
Right. This is true.
And
This is
perhaps a division title.
Perhaps.
true.
I mean, you'd have to kind of consider them the favorite, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Dallas can't do anything without Prescott with
Incredibly
duty playing quarterback, and Philly went. We keep saying, well, when Philly gets healthy, when is that? Never.
When is that going to happen? Yeah. I forgot to do this, by the way. Let me just throw this up. Here we go.
Oh.
Let's get the crawl.
Ooh.
Look at that.
What is that?
This is
I
NFL
got to figure out what that stands for. All right, you guys talk while I figure it out.
But
All right,
no, you're absolutely right.
enough.
Philly's not what they should have been. Dallas is just done. Washington is Washington. I mean, right now, even stepping out as a Giant fan, I would say that the Giants probably look like they stand the best chance to win the division. But let's be realistic. No matter who wins the division, they're losing in the first round of the playoffs.
I think it's I think the Giants and Philly are probably the two favorites, just based on talent and how healthy both of those teams are compared to Dallas and Washington. But this division.
But if you're out of the first pick fishbowl, wouldn't you like to see him win a division, even if it means they might have a
squash?
They might have a
division.
But they might have a close game in the playoffs,
right?
Or they could stumble into a win, depending on who they play. Not likely, but it could happen. But even just getting there, I mean, you've got to look at some improvement. And again, I agree there is kind of that downside, but what do I know? Maybe Daniel Jones will be good enough. Maybe he could be Alex Smith good. Yeah. Or maybe better. I mean, they talk about what a great athlete he is. We know he can throw. He's just
he's obviously learned how to run. I think it was
knows how to run.
At least learned how not to fall.
Maybe that's what I mean. That's the improvement, is that he made it to the end zone.
He hasn't. Well, maybe that's why Steve Young likes him.
There you go.
Yeah. What we've realized is about 50 yards is about as long as he can run. So
the 85 was just way too much.
Yeah, he only tripped it. He tripped it around 50.
So when they're at their own 48, then you don't really want to call the option. Wait till we get on the other side.
Let's do it now.
I mean, look, I thought the idea of Joe Burrow playing for the Giants was fantastic. I still think the idea of Trevor Lawrence playing for the Giants would be really exciting. Is Daniel Jones, the worst thing ever? No, but he's how many quarterbacks in the league? He's in the bottom 5. So that's who you have as your quarterback.
Okay.
And if you're going to stick with them, you better get a really great defense, and you better improve the offensive line.
You're saying he's in the bottom 5 of all the quarterbacks in the league, or the best? Yeah. He's in the bottom 5 of the good quarterbacks in the league, because there's some not good quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah, he's one of them. He's in the top. He's the top 5 worst quarterbacks starting right now in the NFL.
All right.
Taking into account people that have gotten hurt, people who's the actual starters in the NFL. So not second stringers. I think he's in the bottom 5.
Like you're comparing him to like the backup in Frisco and the
no. I'm comparing him to I'm comparing him to the actual starters in the NFL.
That's what I was asking. Right. I got you.
Oh, okay.
I think he would be in the middle of the pack as a backup. I think he's a great backup quarterback.
Gotcha. So you would be a proponent of keeping him on the team if they were to get T-Law.
Well, I mean, as a
backup.
As a first-round pick, I'm not sure you're going to be able to afford that. But yeah,
6th pick overall as a backup quarterback.
Yeah. When was the last time that happened?
Right,
well, but that's a double-edged sword, right?
Right.
If you don't keep him, then you've potentially wasted that pick. If you keep him, they go, well, this is 6th pick, but you don't have to keep him past, I guess, his rookie contract.
No.
But again, you'd face that criticism.
Yeah.
But if he's not playing, then what does it matter what pick he was?
It doesn't matter, because by the time his rookie contract's up, the way the NFL is going, we're going to have 7'3" quarterbacks, and they're going to run for 187 yards a game.
Right.
So,
they're just going to be, what they're going to do is they're going to just line up a bunch of linebackers, not linebackers.
Right. They're going to allow them to line up as a wide receiver, and
one wide receiver, one running back, and a quarterback, and then 8 other offensive linemen, and then there you go.
All right.
So
that's something to look forward to.
That's interesting.
Something to look forward to.
All right.
So the Giants look better.
Prove me wrong. If you're an NFL team, okay, and you're the coach or owner of an NFL team, would Daniel Jones, out of all the quarterbacks that are currently playing, including the ones that have been injured this year, would he be in your top 20 to start on your football team?
No, he might be in the top 20. I might take him in the top 20. I wouldn't take him in the top 10.
So there's
Definitely
at least 18 or 19 people that are better than him. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
That's true of a lot of guys.
That's true of a lot of guys, though. I mean,
once you get past
how many starters are there in the league?
32.
Well, 32.
Yeah,
I mean, once you get past the top,
so I would argue that he's not even in the. I don't even think he's in the top 26, 27. Yeah, I think that's my opinion. Nothing has changed on that front. Yeah, he's played a little better.
All right. Well,
he hasn't been awful.
Right. Let me reframe that question a little differently. Let's say the top. Well, you're saying is in the bottom 5.
Yes.
Is that your
bottom 5 or 6 or 7?
So let's say the top 25 or 26 are gone.
Mm-hmm. then I would start to consider.
Okay, there we go. All right, there we go.
All right,
so maybe that. Now, of course, that wasn't the position the Giants were in when they were drafting him 6th, but he's the best of the. Who would you take? Well, I don't even
best
want
of
to ask.
The worst.
I don't even want to ask if you would take Daniel Jones or Sam Darnold, assuming they were both healthy in that situation.
I take Darnold without a doubt.
You know what? I might disagree with you. How strange is that?
Imagine that.
Anyway.
Well, you know what? Time will tell. Right. I mean, how do we feel about Eli?
As far as QBR, we're all Daniel Jones is 19th.
Right. No, I know.
But QBR wise, he's ahead of Ben Roethlisberger, Kirk Cousins, Phillip Rivers, Joe Burrow, Cam Newton, Jared Goff, Gardner Minshew, Carson Wentz. I rest my case.
He's ahead of them,
and he's number 1 in run stumble.
Right. Number 1 in run stumble. Well, where is he as far as quarterback rushing quarterbacks?
I don't know.
He's behind Kyler Murray.
He's averaging 12 yards a carry.
Last I checked, and this stat could be different, but last I checked, he was number 3 behind Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson.
Okay.
But
you don't really necessarily want that.
No.
I mean, that's not by design.
Not at all.
So much as it is by necessity.
But I think it's more intriguing to a lot of people in the NFL at this particular point as far as running quarterbacks go. So
and it certainly kind of sets it up for possibilities as far as the offense that you run. Again, not that you want your quarterback to run a lot, but the fact that he can, that is something you can build into an offense.
And I think QBR is not the best stat to judge people by, because Ryan Fitzpatrick is number 4, and last time I checked, he lost his starting job.
Right. Yeah, he's number 4, and he hasn't played in 3 weeks.
Right.
So
that's just ageism at work. That's all that is.
It's crazy. Well, I mean,
I'm looking at a list of 30 quarterbacks here, and there's only one person on this list that I would not pick over Daniel Jones, and that's Drew Lock.
Well, you know what? I hope you wouldn't pick Drew Lock over Daniel Jones. I mean,
that's it. I mean, I'm being completely honest.
You would pick Gardner Minshew over Daniel Jones?
Oh yeah,
really?
Why not? No, I mean, he's proven himself a little bit more.
Way cooler name.
Okay, so maybe there's 2. Well, I'll give you Minshew. Okay, so that's 30 quarterbacks. That's 2. Okay, here's the other ones. You got Rodgers, Mahomes, Breeze, Fitzpatrick, Allen, Ryan, Prescott, Wilson, Carr, Murray, Tannehill. Maybe Tannehill. Okay, that's Bridgewater. Brady, Mayfield, Deshaun Watson, Justin Herbert, Matthew Stafford, Lamar Jackson, Roethlisberger, Cousins, Rivers, Burrow, Newton. All right, I'll give you Newton maybe. Okay, so now that's 3 or 4. Right. So he's 26th.
Okay. All right.
So my point is proven.
There you go.
Top 25 are gone. You're taking Daniel Jones.
Let me ask this really quick, and then we'll wrap it up. Just a question. How did we feel halfway through Eli's second season, and how do we feel halfway through Phil Sims's second season?
Halfway through Phil Sim's second season, I think I was still wearing footy pajamas. So
no, you weren't.
What was Phil? When did Phil Sim start?
You were almost
78.
He got drafted in 79, so it would have been 1980. Okay. You were 12 years old. You were almost
11. Yeah.
So.
I'm wearing footy pajamas right now, so
yeah, exactly.
So I don't know.
I can't say anything about anybody's sleepwear habits.
Yeah,
exactly. I wear them to work, but that's anyway. But in any event, a couple.
And I'll answer your question. In Eli's second season, he was better than Daniel Jones is playing right now.
No, but I mean, yeah, he was quarterback-wise. He was quarterback numbers, actual traditional quarterback numbers. He was better. Yes, he definitely was. But
what are we looking at? Untraditional quarterback numbers?
The intangibles, the running, the scrambling, the getting out of the pocket.
In other words, was the attitude about him, the general attitude about him, hey, he's getting better, I think this kid's got something, or was it, I don't know, I just don't know.
Yeah, I think
maybe he's never going to make it.
I think the attitude was this guy's the future of the organization,
right?
And look, Daniel Jones has had a couple decent games where he's ran the ball.
Right.
He's no, I mean, he's no Kyler Murray.
Right. No, and of course he's not.
He's not even an Aaron Rodgers.
Is he a Phil McConkey?
Well,
Phil McConkey didn't play quarterback. So.
But yes, I know. Who's the guy I'm thinking of?
Jeff Hostetler?
Hostetler, yeah.
No,
Is he Jeff Hostetler?
No, Hostetler won a Super Bowl. Hostetler was maybe, quite possibly the single season quarterback change in the history of the NFL. The Giants would not have won that Super Bowl in 1990 if Phil Simms did not get hurt.
Absolutely. No. I agree. And Harry, you've heard me say this time and time again for the last 30 years. If Phil Simms does not get hurt in the Buffalo game, the Giants do not win the Super Bowl. I don't think the Giants get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Now, they lose the 49ers game in the championship game.
And Hostetler went on to have, a decent season with the Giants after that. And then obviously with the Raiders, he played. I mean, he got hurt. I hope Daniel Jones can be that good. I just don't see it. And no, I'm not an expert on quarterbacks, but I just don't think he has,
except for Daniel Jones.
Except for Daniel Jones. Yeah.
I'm just looking at the facts.
No. You know what? You're right. But here's the thing.
I just don't want to be a homer and say and wish for the best. It's like
Here's what the pundits are saying, and here I'm not saying what they're saying, but here's what they're looking at. They're looking at the fact that this is 2 games in a row now. I mean, he's obviously done something. Knock on wood. He's obviously done something about his fumbling. This is 2 games in a row now where he hasn't thrown a pick. He's moving around the pocket. He's throwing a couple of nice downfield passes. He's connecting some spot on connections. He's moving around the pocket, like I said. He's running. He had 60 some odd yards. He was their highest yardage gainer on the ground the other day. So that's what they're looking at. They're looking at everything. You can't.
He was accurate. He had a good game, but he threw for 244 yards in a league where people throw for 344. And he has not thrown. He's thrown 1 touchdown in the last. So in the last 3 weeks, he's thrown 3 touchdowns and 2 picks.
Right. No,
So he's playing better, but the jury's still
in the last 3 weeks because he hasn't thrown a pick in 2 weeks.
No. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
He threw 2 though.
2 though 3 weeks ago. Yeah.
So he's played Washington and Philadelphia. Guys.
I know what you're saying. Look, I agree.
Played Clemson, his QBR would go down.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying what they're looking at is all they're looking at. They're not looking at his numbers compared to Eli. They're looking at his numbers compared to.
I'm not looking at him next to Eli either. I'm looking at him next to what all of the other quarterbacks in the league are doing, including the ones. And I'm also looking at the potential of the ones coming up behind him that we're now never going to have a chance to get. But
but they're looking at his numbers compared to him. That's what they're looking at.
Yes.
You know what? Time will tell. Let's see what plays out next week and the week after. Well, next week they're not going to lose next week because they're
guaranteed to not lose.
They're guaranteed to not lose this coming week. So, couple interesting things about the Giants too before we move on from them. Mark Colombo, offensive line coach, got fired today.
Yes.
He was let go. He's relieved of his duties, so to speak. Apparently there was a heated confrontation, as the story goes, as I've read, and was explained to me. Joe Judge wanted to bring in Dave DeGuglielmo. He was actually the Giants' assistant offensive line coach, back in 04 through 08, which was a decent time for Giants' offensive line, too. He was part of that. He wanted to bring him in. He actually interviewed him in the off season with Colombo, and Colombo got the job. But Joe Judge wanted to bring him in now to assist Mark Colombo, and apparently Mark Colombo was not too happy about that. So apparently there was a heated confrontation.
Rightfully so.
There was a report on the word on the street was that there was actually fisticuffs between Joe Judge and Mark Colombo. I would have liked to have seen that, but the Giants have since downplayed that report.
Of course.
But either way, Mark Colombo has been relieved of his nudies. His nudies? His duties.
Well, that too. That was the real reason.
That was the real reason.
It was an early Festivus. They had their airing of the grievances.
Exactly.
And,
so the new offensive line coach is Dave DeGuglielmo. So
say that 5 times fast.
Dave DeGuglielmo.
All right. Well, listen, this will be a second chance for Joe Judge to get this decision right. Because obviously the first one was not.
Obviously the first
by
one
his
was
own
not.
admission. So
well, Mark Colombo was brought over with Jason Garrett from Dallas. So that's where.
I mean, if one thing you could say about Dallas, almost for the last 20 years, is that they've always excelled at the offensive line.
Right.
So let's see.
Definitely.
So now the guy that came from that is gone.
Is gone. Exactly. And another quick, interesting little tidbit too. Remember DeAndre Baker? He was one of the Giants' three first round picks last year.
Sure,
decent rookie. Looked like he was definitely part of a upstart of in the defensive backfield, secondary rather. And he was let go this season because he was arrested in Florida and was coming up on charges for armed robbery. Apparently now obviously since he's not a Giant anymore, he was cleared of all of those charges and he just signed with the Chiefs.
What do the Chiefs have a roster that's bigger than everybody else's?
Apparently, he was actually, in all fairness, he was signed to the Chiefs practice squad.
Okay,
so he'll I'm sure he'll find a way into a game.
If somebody gets hurt, or give him a couple of weeks, and he'll
he'll be
right. Somebody made up the story about him. It was completely. I heard it was completely fabricated.
Yep.
And it's taken him this long to clear his name.
Yep.
But of course, the Giants, as pretty much with every other team, you're guilty until proven guilty.
Guilty until proven anything.
And so they cut him loose.
Yep. Just see ya. Goodbye.
He hired Rudy Giuliani, and all is fine now. He did a brief stint at the Four Seasons Landscaping, and now he's on the Chiefs practice squad.
This is the third podcast in a row that Four Seasons Landscape has made its way into. Anyway,
and our podcast is brought to you by
Four Seasons
Landscaping. For all your landscaping and press conference needs, Four Seasons Landscaping.
They don't know it, but it's brought to you by them.
But it's brought to you by them. Yeah.
Get yourself some Pete Moss and go next door and get yourself something else.
It's only $1 a basket. Anyway, but in any event, so that's the Giants news for today.
The Giants report.
That's the Giants report. Let's move on to the Jets. What do we have to say about the Jets there?
All right. Well,
I know you wanted to say something there.
I'm trying to remember what it was. No,
the Jets were off last week, so there's not really a lot to talk about.
Listen, I don't think there's any way that you could say there's not a plot to just wallow in horrificness. But they sort of, as the Jets usually do, shot themselves in the shoulder this time. When Sam Darnold originally got hurt and it was, he was examined, and then it was kind of like, oh, well, he can't get hurt any worser. But, that's never true.
Right.
He can always get hurt worser. And so then that happened a month later. But the problem for them is that, Joe Flacco might actually give them a better chance to win games. And he certainly has he doesn't want to tank for Trevor Lawrence. Joe Flacco wants to get a job next year. So he's going to go out and they've got their right. I mean, he's going to want to do this again,
right?
And probably not as a backup for Trevor Lawrence. So he's got something to prove, and they've got their full receiving core. And the Jets once again sort of put the inept in ineptitude. Yeah. And I know Mr. Gase said he expects Sam Darnold to play again this season, but that doesn't mean anything. We don't really know what's going on there. So.
No, not at all.
But you'd think they'd, kind of want to bring him back. But he says, well, now I'm not coming back till I'm 100%. Well, really? That should have kind of been the thought process in the first place, wouldn't it? Wouldn't you think that would be?
You would
don't come back and before you're actually ready. And then, of course, he gets thrown to the turf, which could have, even if he wasn't injured, that could have caused an injury. But so they're just, they cannot do anything right except lose, which in this case is the one thing that you want.
Right.
But they may end up blowing that in the coming weeks.
Well, yeah, of course. But and that would be very Jets-like.
Because, say it with me, they're the Jets.
Exactly.
That's the Jets report.
And that's the Jets report for this week. The Jets report this week has been brought to you by Sam Darnold.
Jets report this week has been brought to you by Prozac. For all you Jets fans out there, get a bulk pack. Prozac.
Ritalin, I think, is more like
Ritalin. Yeah. Jack Daniels, helping you get through Jets games since 1968.
Even better.
Brought to you by a sleep mask and noise canceling headphones.
That's right.
So once the kickoff starts,
put them on.
When they kick the ball off, put them on and don't take them off for 3.5 hours. Make sure you get maximum enjoyment out of the Jets.
Enjoy every minute of it by not listening to it.
By not watching and not listening.
All right. So what happened with some night games? I mean, let's go back to last Thursday night. What happened there? That was an interesting game. It was a pretty great game, actually.
Yes, you picked that one correct.
No, I'm not even talking about my pick. I'm just talking about the game. It was a pretty good game.
Now we know you're picking the game. Well, I don't know. Was it?
For the Colts, it was.
Well, for the Colts, it was. I mean, they doubled them up, right? Was that 34-17 was the final?
34-17, yeah.
And not. Well, we'll get to the picks later, but
good
week for you. Congratulations. The coin's still over 500.
The coin is still over 500.
And
imagine that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was a pretty good game. I mean, I honestly expected the Colts to do that. Maybe not that. I expected them to win. I expected it to be a good game. I didn't expect the Colts to walk away with it like they did. But it was just typical Phillip Rivers. I mean, they win a game, they lose a game. They win a game, they lose a game. They're right there in that division. I'm not writing it off that it's the Titans division. I think the Colts can still win it.
They're right there with every other team in the NFL who's really good one week and really
bad another.
Which seems to be
shits their pants the next week.
Yeah, if we've learned anything, it's that it's like these kind of losses or whatever, or these games where you really expect one team to win or you fairly expect one team to win. Right. It's a crapshoot. This season is just, it's not like, they lost to a team they shouldn't have lost to, and it was kind of a fluke, and they probably won't do that again this season. Right. 2 weeks later, it kind of happens again.
Yeah.
And we go from, break it down into the first 4 weeks to the next 4 weeks and who was looking really good and who was really looking bad. And the whole thing is flip-flopped.
Right.
And I don't think there's really, there's a couple of teams that you could say, well, we know they're really, really good and they'll be there at the end, but
sure.
Only really a few, in my estimation. Everybody else is subject to potentially having a couple of those bad weeks where they're losing to teams they should beat, or those teams that weren't so good or beating teams that you wouldn't think they would. It's truly anything goes this season.
It's crazy. Yeah. And that's even part and parcel to the Sunday night game too. I mean, did we really expect the Ravens to lose the way they did to the Pats on Sunday night?
Not to the Patriots.
I don't think any of us did.
No, and the Ravens are one of those teams that I don't think they have quite the same magic in them that they did last year.
No, they definitely don't. It's not the same thing.
And Belichick game planned against them, and certainly he did some things that took advantage of the weather. But I mean, this is the Baltimore Ravens. If any team can win in crappy weather, it should be the Ravens.
Should be. Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, look, they're not the same team as they were last year, and
Cam Newton isn't the same quarterback as he was the week before either. That's just
right. No, I was talking about Baltimore. Where's their running game?
Right. Yeah.
If it's not true. Lamar Jackson, who are they? Who's he handing off to?
Yeah,
who is true. Going to, freeze those linebackers that was going to cause play action to make anybody think that they're actually going to run for a second. Take that element out.
Yeah.
And then it's, well, either he's going to run or he's going to throw. And, it gets a lot easier to kind of stop them. And then you shut him down, of course.
Mark Andrews hasn't been what he's been in the past this year. He was the top three tight ends, and he hasn't even been in the top 10 this year.
Yeah. So you're taking options away from him. And he's not a one-dimensional quarterback, but his strength is not dropping back in the pocket and finding somebody open and throwing.
Right.
Throwing downfield. So, not that it's easy to beat because they're still a heck of a team and he's still a heck of a player, but again, doesn't have quite the same weapons around him. And I don't care how good you are under center. If you don't have weapons, you're only going to go so far.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But you know what? It's crazy. Like you said, it's 2020. It's really 2020. And specifically speaking of the Ravens, though, they're definitely, like you said before, Harry, they're not what they were last year. That magic is not where they were. It's just not.
Yeah. Well, everybody kind of figures out, right?
Yeah.
When you get a player like that who comes into the league and tears it up, now
yeah.
everybody is gaming against that.
Yeah.
At least that to start with, and then we'll
go from there.
Going up
from there,
right, yeah. Especially against a guy like Belichick, who is understanding obviously that his offense is not going to bail him out most days,
right?
And that he doesn't have a great defense either, so he's going to have to really make the most of what he does have, and that's what he does best.
They ran it 39 times for 173 yards, and they didn't even win the battle of time of possession. Baltimore still had the ball more, but by doing that, they kept the ball out of Lamar Jackson's hands just enough to squeak out a victory. And look, don't count New England out in the NFC East.
It's crazy to say.
Can't count anybody out anywhere. Well, with rare exception.
There was no scoring. There was no scoring in that game in the first quarter and the fourth quarter. It was just all the scoring was in the second, third quarters. That was it. But it was just crazy. And the fourth quarter was this deluge. I mean, it was just a downpour. It was buckets of water coming out of the sky in the fourth quarter. So, but
old time football.
Exactly. And then the Vikings Bears game, on Monday night. I mean, It seemed that the Vikings were up for a while. They were rolling away with it, and all of a sudden they pulled they tried and tried and tried as hard as they could, but despite all their efforts, they still won the game.
Yeah, well, I think Chicago did they get no offensive touchdowns? They got a defensive touchdown in that game,
They got a defensive touchdown and 2 field goals, yeah.
And 2 field goals. So, look.
No, special teams touchdown and 2 field
Special teams. Oh, yeah. I knew it wasn't the offense, but.
It was a 104-yard run back from Devin Hester II.
Yeah. So Chicago's lost 4 in a row, right? They're 5-5.
5-5.
Foles was carted off the field.
He
may not be back, and even if he does come back, I don't know what his status is, but
I don't even know.
He doesn't seem to be the answer in Chicago.
No,
and we know the coach doesn't think Trubisky's the answer in Chicago.
Not at all.
And we've seen the Vikings with a guy who can run the ball and extremely well turn into a much better team.
Yep.
And I think early in the season we said, the Vikings aren't as bad as their 1-4 record or whatever it was. And they're kind of proving that. And Chicago doesn't seem like they were as good as their 5-1 record. So
what's funny?
Things are evening out in those respects.
Absolutely. What's funny too about about Dalvin Cook on Monday night? It seemed overall watching the game, it seemed as if Chicago had his number and he wasn't getting the yardage he had the weeks before. And it's true he didn't. But he had almost a 100-yard game.
About 30 carries.
30, he was 3-point-something per carry.
3.2 yards a carry, yeah.
But still, the fact that their offense is on the field and he's getting those carries, and at least he's getting something out of it. Right. And if you're Chicago and you don't have a kind of an offense that can rack up big chunks of yardage, then you're going to need to be on the field more opportunities. And the more plays in each drive, the more chance to fail in each drive.
Right.
So and Minnesota had the ball 12 more minutes than Chicago, which is big. I mean,
that's a couple of decently long drives, or one very long drive.
Right. And Justin Jefferson had a great game. I mean, he was at 135 yards on 8 receptions.
8 receptions. Yeah.
It was crazy.
And I heard a couple of guys talking the other day on the radio, and they were going, who was the last great Chicago quarterback? Let's say since I think. Well, I guess I want to say they might have mentioned McMahon.
Well, I mean, just because
there was winning involved, and they were like who's been there since then? Like, who's the best since then? And they came up with Jay Cutler.
Yeah, well, I mean, Cutler
and
was
I thought it was
quarterback,
right? No, but not that he was good. But the point was he's the
Jim
best.
Harbaugh.
He's the best quarterback Chicago's had.
Yeah,
since
sort
Jim
of.
McMahon.
Yeah, and they're like, well, how do you expect to win? I mean, Chicago's always right. They've always been known for defense, right?
Yeah, it's a defense and a running game. That's Chicago, right?
But
So,
the league's just not that anymore and has progressively become less and less that. But then they have not adapted.
Right. Look, and I said Harbaugh, and I was right. I mean, Jay Cutler's with the Bears threw for 23 over 23,000 yards and in 102 games. Jim Harbaugh threw for, the next closest guy is Sid Luckman under 15,000, and then Jim Harbaugh and Jim McMahon. Yeah. So I mean,
but
Rex Grossman.
Yeah, Kyle Orton, looking at the level of success, though, I think is what they were.
Jim Harbaugh had some. I mean, obviously, McMahon is the only one to bring him a Super Bowl.
Sure,
but that certainly wasn't. I mean, he was a big part of that team, but he wasn't lighting it up necessarily.
Right.
But Jay Cutler's number wise, he had some big numbers.
Not as bad. No, I think he got more of a bad rap because of his face.
Right.
Than anything else.
He also had a 62% completion. I mean,
he's no Chad Pennington.
No, he's
no Chad Pennington.
Yeah.
But I mean, my point is that the guys running the Bears, making the draft picks, haven't really done them any favors. And it was also mentioned they traded up to get Trubisky. So speaking of ineptitude,
they traded. Didn't they pass up on Mahomes too to get Trubisky? Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. So they screwed the pooch on that. But over the years, they have not. Over the decades now, they have not done Chicago fans or the team any favors as far as bringing in the most important player on the field or the toughest job in any pro sport in the world, and they haven't done a good job of A, bringing somebody in, and B, necessarily surrounding with the right talent.
Right.
So you have reason to be angry if you're a Chicago fan.
This is true. You do.
Who's going to start this week for them? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. I mean, Trubisky was just out. I mean, he might be able to come back this week.
I think he's able to come back, or they'll get.
Tyler Bray is who came in for.
Tyler Bray came in, and
Who was the guy that the Jets had last year? Was it Fales? His name was Fales or something.
Perfect name.
Put him in there.
And now for the Jets, starting at quarterback, Epic Fails.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Eric. Eric.
I'm sorry, Eric.
I thought it was the P. Either way, his nickname is Epic Fails, but his real name is Eric.
Eric Epic Fails.
And actually, the Jets are they're forfeiting. They don't even want to. They don't even want to try.
Take the game. It's all yours. You're good to
go.
You just see him over on the sideline praying.
I don't think either of these teams make the play. I mean, Minnesota has a chance, but this is obviously Green Bay's division to lose.
Yeah.
And
Green Bay's the number one team in the NFC right now.
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, yeah.
But, and you've got to consider the limitations of Kirk Cousins until he proves otherwise. Although he did get the Monday Night Monkey off his back, but
finally, and after nine,
he has not lived up to his contract.
No, he hasn't. But he had a pretty good game. And
he's had some great games through his career.
He was at the end of it.
I mean, he's in the best. He's on a team right now that is the perfect match for him because they can control the ball, they can run it. They don't necessarily need him to throw it, 55 times a game. Although he threw it 36 times,
right?
Which I guess is just slightly over average now.
That was the right place for him to go. It just took a couple years to kind of get to. I mean, you could say, the last couple of years they've sort of been on the cusp there. Yeah. So that was the right decision.
And they seem to be the nemesis of a lot of other teams in that division.
Yeah.
He's certainly glad that he's not in Washington.
Well, speaking of the teams in that division,
Washington wasn't too far off from winning last week.
Yeah, but they wouldn't have done it with Kirk Cousins.
No. Alex Smith, would he throw it like 80 times for? Anyway.
Yeah, no, you're right. He did. But,
I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not much.
Well, I mean, you know what though? I mean, the Matthew Stafford though. I mean, he was going toe to toe and came down to that field goal. I mean, it would have gone overtime anyway, right? If he missed the field goal.
Yeah.
So, but in any event, getting back to the what I was going to say about the Packers though. I mean, that was, There you go. There's your Gardner Minshew, Harry. Just standing toe-to-toe with the Packers. I mean, was that – let me ask you both a question. Do you think that was more the Packers just, losing their minds and playing down to the competition, or was that the Jags actually saying, hey, you know what, we actually are a decent football team. Look what we can do against the Green Bay Packers.
Other than the San Francisco game, have the Packers and the Falcons, I guess, have the Packers really just beaten up on a team they're supposed to beat up on? Not really.
No,
I mean, they've scored a lot of points in their wins,
but this was the only real nail biter, other than the games they lost. Obviously, this was the only real nail biter of the games that they won.
Well, they only won. That's right. They lost to the Vikings, actually.
Yeah. I don't know if maybe sometimes they just kind of maybe they just don't go all out. They figure they're going to win, or they figure, well, if something bad happens, we can kind of turn it on late in the game. I mean, sort of the way Kansas City does, and maybe that just doesn't always work out for them, and you end up with a close game like this.
Yeah,
they're counting on a burst that just kind of doesn't appear.
I mean, they could very easily go 14-2. Listen to the rest of their schedule. They have the Colts. They're at Indianapolis, which is going to be a little bit of a tough game. Then they have the Bears, the Eagles, the Lions, the Panthers, and the Titans and the Bears again. Right. I mean, all right, let's say they lose one of those, maybe the Titans or the Colts, 13-3 or 14-2. That's probably going to get them the best record in the NFC.
I would say the only game that on that list that's there that is going to be a tough game is the Colts, and that's this weekend, right? If I'm not mistaken. And then and they might completely turn around and look at us and say. Or not look at us and say, but they might turn around and blow them out. Put the Colts and
then lose to the Bears,
and then lose to the Bears. Right, exactly. With Trubisky or Bray in, at quarterback.
Yeah.
But hey, you know what? It's 2020, and the same holds true for pretty much everybody in the league.
Aaron Rodgers has as much talent as he's had in many, many years around him right now. I think the key to Green Bay is their defense, which is not bad, is their defense holding up in high-scoring games of being able to get the ball back in Rodgers' hands so that they give him a shot to win these close games coming down the stretch in the playoffs. And I think Green Bay is positioned to do that.
I think they are. You talk about the defense. I mean, they lost two guys to the Giants between Martinez and Fackrell, and they're playmakers for the Giants. So I think their defense is a little weaker than it was last year, but it's still good. It's still sufficient, and I think they're. I think right now, I said they were neck and neck with Seattle. I don't like what I'm seeing with Seattle for the last few games, and maybe they turn it around, maybe they don't. Who knows? But
this week will be a big test for Seattle.
Tomorrow night's game is definitely going to be a huge test for Seattle.
And part of me wants to say, and we'll go into it with our picks, but part of me wants to say this is the game that you expect the Cardinals to win, but this is a game that I would not surprise me if Seattle bounces back and wins at home.
Yeah, it's kind of wondering if. Was Seattle really that good early on, or maybe teams were just not that good and they're kind of catching up now? Are they kind of going through a little bit of a dead period here, and will they sort of rebound and get better the last couple games?
It's their defense. Yeah, I always thought that people talking about how powerful the Seahawks offense was a little bit off base. I think they're good. I don't think they're in the league of the top. I don't even think they're in the top 5 or 6 offenses in the league. Right. Yes, Russell Wilson and the game's on the line can do things that other quarterbacks can't. Right. It's all going to come down to, can they use the personnel they have on defense right now to be able to game plan to just keep them close. And I think that's really the key. Their defense is giving up a lot of points.
They are, and that's their downfall. Obviously, is their defense. What happened with the Bills the other week? That was crazy. The way they played that game, I was shocked that was Seattle that was on the field.
But the Bills are a team that
I'm not taking anything away from the Bills.
The ball bounces one way last week, and a couple of weeks ago, it bounces another way. We're talking about the Bills being in the top 4 or 5 teams in the league.
Yeah.
And they still might be, you know?
And speaking of the top teams in the league, let's go over to the Steelers. Are they for real? I
They
mean,
seem to know how to win. And Roethlisberger seems to be grooving in this offense. 4 touchdowns after coming off a game where he got hurt.
Right.
Yeah, I think they are for real. Do I think they're better than Kansas City? No. But do I think they're better than any other team in the AFC other than Kansas City?
But they're only going to have to beat Kansas City once, right?
Well,
you know,
yeah,
that's still a tall order. But as we've seen, it's not impossible.
Well, 2 years ago, the Pats did it in the was that the AFC championship? It was the AFC championship game.
Championship game.
Yeah.
So I could picture. I mean, I think the Steelers team is as good. It's going to take Kansas City maybe having an injury or two, and maybe Mahomes turning the ball over in a way that he typically has not.
Right.
But yeah, the Steelers are a pretty good team.
Yeah.
Well, the Raiders beat Kansas City this year, right? Is that correct?
They did.
The Raiders
they're good. And they play again this week, and the Chiefs are not happy.
I'm sure they're not. Yeah, that's going to be a telltale.
It's the Chiefs' only. It's the Chiefs' only loss.
Well, and the Raiders supposedly did a victory lap in their bus after the game.
Which is
so because the one thing you want to do is you want to motivate Kansas City.
Yeah, they don't have reason. You're right.
You want to poke that bear,
right?
Well, and you've already given them motivation by ruining a perfect season for them.
Right.
So you want to taunt them on top of that.
Yeah.
How do we feel about the Dolphins?
I was just going to bring that up too.
They're going to probably win the AFC East, right?
It looks that way. It really does look that way. I mean you know what?
New England's going to have to catch up.
New England's got to play catch up. The Bills, I don't know where they are right now. Are they down, up, down, up? Where are they going?
Do you have more questions about the Bills or about the Dolphins?
I have more questions about the Bills than I do about the Dolphins.
Bills have more potential, it seems.
Bills definitely have more potential.
They're less consistent, it seems.
Absolutely. And
so
what the Dolphins are doing right now, I'm shocked that they're not 1 or 2 games ahead. I mean, what if the Dolphins are
pretty good.
I mean, the Bills are off this week, right? And the Dolphins are playing. The Dolphins win this week; they're tied, and the Bills have the tiebreaker because they had won the one game against they won the first game against the Dolphins already. But they're both 7-3, you know. So I think I said at the beginning of the season that was the Bills' division to lose. I still think it is, but watch out for Miami. So
I think you're right. I think if it's not for literally a Hail Mary. We're talking about the Bills being 8-2 and only losing to the Titans and the Chiefs. I still think the Bills are a better team. However, I think the Bills need to find a way to win these close games. They didn't necessarily light up the Jets. They only won by 3 against the Patriots. It seems like the Bills are again one of these teams that kind of plays up to their opponent.
Right.
And they only beat the Miami by 3 back in week 2. So I think they're really close. I still, there's something about this Bills team that I think if they can just hold on a little bit more, I think that they can win this division. I think it's going to take a lot to go right for New England to bounce back and even have a chance, but I think if I had to pick a team, I still think Buffalo wins this division. Although Miami, because the other shoe has to drop at some point for Miami.
Right.
You know, the learning curve, the sort of growing pains have to show up at some point.
It could just be a charmed season, though. I mean, they might experience those growing pains next year. You know, Right now, Miami, even though they're not leading the division, they're still in the wild card. So they're still making the playoffs. So that still may happen too. Even if the Bills win, Miami still might be there come playoff time. So you know,
and we have to consider the fact that I think you're right, Harry. You know, the growing pains of being a rookie are going to catch up to Tua at some point. But we do have to consider the fact that maybe he's just one of those guys who comes in and plays really well, maybe not superstar well, but plays really well as a rookie. And obviously he did have about half a season or close to half a season to sort of sit and watch and learn. And maybe that's all that he needed. I mean, he looks pretty good. And again, the pundits are saying, they're saying he's the real deal. So it's going to be very
and they beat the Rams, albeit I think he didn't play in that game, but you know, they've won against 3 pretty darn good teams. I mean, the Chargers' record doesn't really reflect it, but But beating the Rams, the Cardinals, and the Chargers 3 weeks in a row, that's a good run.
Now, if the Chargers had a better defense, the Chargers' record would be different too.
And I think it was the Chargers I saw last week. They've lost like 4 or 5 of their 6 or 7 losses have been like 4 points or less, or less than a touchdown.
I think they've lost.
It's their defense.
They're kind of right. They can't stop anybody like so many other teams. They can't stop anybody on that last drive, but they've been in it, and Justin Herbert's looking pretty good. I feel sorry for that guy because he's maybe outplayed every other rookie in the league.
You know what, though?
But being on a losing team, he's not getting that recognition.
He's got to be having fun, though. I mean, he's a rookie, and he's playing very well, as well as any rookie quarterback you could hope.
Yeah, and he's look at the guy that he's replacing too.
Right. Yeah,
right, an icon. You think that's how do you follow him?
How do you follow?
Even though he didn't really win the big one, but I think he's nobody is going, oh man, I wish we had Rivers still. Even though they're not winning, I think. Well, I mean, I'm sure some people are saying that, but it doesn't seem to me that's the general mood that everybody.
Well, they're saying that now because of what Philip Rivers is doing in Indianapolis. But
I would say Herbert's doing just as well as Rivers, and maybe a little bit more consistently.
Right.
And if Rivers does what Rivers does in Indy at the end of the season, then it's going to be, that's Philip Rivers. If he can't quite get over the hump, they'll go, that's Philip Rivers for you.
Exactly.
Have fun, Indy. Ha ha. We got a hot young stud now on the.
I just feel like watching Philip Rivers play for the Colts was like watching Brett Favre play for the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't seem like
the
he's
Jets, the Vikings.
Well, the Vikings. It doesn't seem like Rivers has lost much.
No, not really. No, he really hasn't. All right. Well, why don't we do some picks? Beaten by the coin.
Beaten by the coin.
I'm sure I'll lose to the coin.
No one wants to be beaten by the coin.
All right. Quick recap of Week 10. Jersey solidifies his lead. Oh, I'm sorry. 3-1. You picked Baltimore. So you went 3-1. Good for you. The coin went 2-2 with wins with Indy and New England, losing with Chicago and Philly. Everyone lost with Philly except for Gianni. Yours truly 1-3. Yuck. And Harry, you get the bagel. 0 for 4 last week.
That's a horrible week.
Yeah, it's a bad week.
So let's see. So Johnny leads 28-7. That's ridiculous. You're getting professional advice, I'm sure. I think you're 28-7. That's ridiculous.
It's the gnome.
5 games back. The
gnome over there is telling me who to
Is that what it is? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm 5 games back. Harry's 8 games back. The coin remains 1 game over, 10 games back of the leader. So everyone still pretty safe from the coin.
Yep.
Not me.
Well, it's a couple games. We've got a few weeks left, so
we got 7 games next week to pick. So don't worry about that.
Yeah, we've had a lot of 4-game weeks. So
we got three Thursday games next week. So we got a lot of games next week.
Yeah, it's hard to get a swing if you don't have the full slate. All right, so tomorrow night is Arizona at Seattle, and we'll let Mr. Big Shot 28-7 go first. Why not? We're gonna make you pick at first every pick.
You're gonna make me pick first every pick, are you?
Yeah. No, I wouldn't do that to you.
All right. Well, you know what? I would definitely pick the Cardinals, but I think Harry's right. This is the week. You think that the Cardinals are going to win this game, but Seattle's home, and not that that's meant a whole hell of a lot this season with nobody in the stands, but I think Seattle's winning this game.
Yeah. Okay. Johnny likes Seattle. Harry, you want to go? Or you want me to go?
No, go ahead, Pete. I'm contemplating.
Pondering.
You're pondering.
I'm pondering my inability to.
Pondering.
I tend to agree with everything you just said, John. I think Arizona's on the come, as they say. They are getting hot and staying hot. I think Seattle. I think they're going to play better throughout the rest of the season, but I don't think it'll be enough this week, even in Seattle. I don't think that really means much. So I'll take the Cardinals.
Go for it.
All right. Should I flip? I'll give Harry another second.
No. Okay. If you want to do the coin, go for it.
Okay. Well, hold on to the answer and let Harry go.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good idea. All right.
I don't know why. I'm going to go with my gut. Everything I said. I think this is a do or die game for Seattle. Having said that, I think this is what Seattle is turning into, and I'm going to pick the Cardinals. It doesn't make any sense really, but I can see them winning this game.
All right.
Okay. Okay.
Well, I can too. All right. Here's the coin.
All right.
I can't see it. Anyway, it's heads. So they pick Seattle.
So pick Seattle. Coins with me.
So Johnny and the coin once again together.
Good.
Johnny and the coin.
Johnny and the coin.
Let's see. I wrote the Jets against Chargers.
Chargers.
Because
Yes.
there's 50 LA teams. I
Okay.
can't just put LA. Anybody want to take the Jets? Is this the week?
No.
Those Chargers and no, they're
No. Justin Herbert's getting a win this
the
week.
kid's going to get his third win.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody?
No.
Okay.
Sorry, Pete.
I should have put that in. When I made up the chart, I could have put the C in there. All right. Let's see what the coin says. Coin says heads, which is the home team, and so we're all betting on the Chargers.
Everybody's taking the Chargers.
KC and the Raiders.
You go first this one.
Yeah. Raiders are looking good. Chucky is having reason to have that smirk that he has, but I don't think they're going to do it twice in a row. I think KC understands that they got a lot on the line, whether they can lose or not, or can afford to, I should say. So I'm going to take the boys in red over the silver and black.
I have to agree with you. Raiders aren't sweeping the Chiefs this season. So
No,
that's
it's not going to happen. Yeah, the Chiefs are going to win this game. In fact, I think the Chiefs are going to go in there, and I think you're going to see the best Chiefs performance of the year.
right,
Whatever the spread is,
Chiefs are winning.
Definitely take the over.
take the over. All right.
All right.
And the coin says heads. Coin likes the Raiders.
Coin likes the Raiders. They're Raiders.
Yeah, why not? What is the coin now? They picked the Jets 2 weeks in a row.
This is
Stupid
true.
Coin.
This is true.
All right. The Rams.
Barn burner.
Another barn burner. The Rams at Tampa Bay.
Rams at Tampa Bay.
What did we say last week? Tampa Bay should win this one.
Going away, right?
Yeah. No, they.
Well, they did last week. It was the week before.
The week before,
2 weeks ago. Yeah. So I guess Harry, you're up first. You got to pick one.
I'm going to go with the Bucs at home. I think this team is gelling a little bit, and I think they've got enough. I think they have enough to beat the Rams.
I'll agree.
Yeah, that's a consensus. I think the Bucs get a win here. The Rams are gonna. It's gonna be a good game. The Rams are gonna
It'll be
play
a good
tough.
game.
The defense is gonna be tough. Brady's gonna have his work cut out for him, but the Bucs are gonna win this game.
Yeah, I don't.
Look for Mike Evans. Look for Mike Evans to have a good game. After that first week with Antonio Brown, have you noticed how much Brady's targeting Mike Evans?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, let's see what the coin says. Coin says tails.
Rams.
So going for the Rams.
Coin's going against the three of us.
The coin. Well, listen.
Watch the coin pick up a game.
Anything can happen in this league. So there we go. There's our picks. I'll post them. I don't know. Maybe tomorrow.
That'll work.
Maybe after the Thursday night game. Who knows? Before I think I posted them yesterday.
You know, this could be the week where the coin passes me or ties me, because these games could all kind of, with the exception of maybe the Jets, these games are all
you and the
kind
coin
of toss-ups.
You and
No
the
pun
coin
intended.
only agree on one game this week.
Yes.
So there we go. So if the Rams, the Raiders, and Seattle have good games, you might fall
below
at least for the week. You'll be beaten by the coin.
There you go.
All right, there it is.
There you go. Beaten by the coin. There you go. All right. Cool. All right. That brings us to this week's segment of top 10 lists. Shall we do our top 10 picks this week?
Yes, top 10 70 sitcoms.
Top 10 70 sitcoms.
Are there 10?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's definitely 10.
Without
Top
a
10
doubt.
70 sitcoms. Definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now we're going to do top 10 wide receivers in NFL history. So why don't I kick it off? What do you think, guys? Should I kick it off?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah,
Why not?
go ahead and kick it off.
I'm going to kick it off. We're going to start with number 10. This week, folks, we actually do not have a tie for 10th place. We actually have somebody on their own in 10th place. So I will kick it off with none other than Megatron, folks, Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson was drafted in the first round with the second overall pick in the 2007 draft by the Detroit Lions. Played his entire career with the Lions. Tons of highlights. I mean, he was three-time first-team All-Pro, second-team All-Pro in 2010, six-time Pro Bowler, straight to 2010 through 2015. He was a member of the 2010s All-Decade team. He was a two-time NFL receiving yards leader in 2011 and 2012. Tons of accolades. I mean, it just goes on and on the list. Receptions leader in 2012, receiving touchdowns leader in 2008. He just his numbers are crazy, and in December of 2012, he broke Jerry Rice's single season record of 1,848 receiving yards and finished the 2012 season with 1,964 yards, an average of almost 123 yards per game. Insane year. Crazy receiver. So that's it. What do you think?
He's number 10.
And he's number 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, his career.
There he is too,
he
folks.
quit.
Right there.
And it must be something with the Detroit uniforms, but he definitely retired way early.
Yep.
I think had he continued playing, there was a chance. I thought he was the only guy I could ever see passing Jerry Rice if he kept playing.
Oh, I think he would have definitely and easily passed Jerry Rice if he kept playing. He's just an amazing player to watch play. And I think you're right. It's something with Detroit. They got to get out after a certain season. But I mean, he was having issues. His body was done playing. He was saying, yeah, it's time. But crazy good player.
Crazy good.
Incredibly physically gifted, and a guy that a prototype for just throw it up there and let him go get it.
And he did every time.
And he did right, and he did. Yeah. So, you could say DeAndre Hopkins Megatroned it with that Hail Mary.
Yeah, I was going to say Calvin Johnson led the ABA in rebounding in 2010 as well.
But let's use that as a verb now. Yeah, DeAndre Hopkins Megatroned it.
He Megatroned it. Yeah.
I like that.
Or did he Hopkins it?
Hopkins it. Well, that's later.
Hopkins it.
The next guy will Hopkins.
That's right.
Calvin Johnson, number 10. Let's go to number 9. Pat, why don't you give us number 9?
Number 9 is Lance Ulworth, also known as Bambi, who started with the San Diego Chargers in both the AFL and the NFL when they joined leagues, and then ended his career with the Dallas Cowboys. He won an AFL championship early on with the Chargers, then won a Super Bowl championship later with the Dallas Cowboys. In fact, he caught a touchdown pass in that Super Bowl. He only caught 2 passes in the Super Bowl win, but he says they were the 2 most important receptions of his career. He was one of the guys, he was probably the first standout wide receiver, when the game really started to open up, when you started to see a little bit more of a balance between running and passing. He was literally head and shoulders above most other, I would say all receivers. And for somebody to have over 10,000 yards and 85 touchdowns, primarily playing in an era where the balance of run to pass was definitively skewed to the run, this guy was amazing. Here's some things that I think are really interesting. He had the most games with 200 plus receiving yards. He was the fastest to 5,000 career receiving yards, the fastest to 6, 7, and 8,000 career receiving yards. He had the most receiving yards in the first 50 games, most receiving yards in the first 75 games, most touchdown receptions, and most consecutive seasons with 11 plus TD receptions. He did that 4 times. Just kind of a groundbreaker. Not a lot of people really remember him because he did sort of play most of his time in the AFL and then, most of his career with the Chargers. But it was nice to see him end his career playing with Roger Staubach and winning a Super Bowl. But certainly a groundbreaker and one of those players who was just beautiful to watch. I mean, obviously it was before our time, but watching game film of this guy is just, he was really, really graceful.
He was
just an incredible route runner.
Well, there you go. Number 9, Lance Allworth.
Yeah.
Good job. Why don't you bring us to number 8 there, Pete?
All right, number 8. Maybe not the original jerk, but certainly one of the best in league history. The guy that you love to hate and who seemed to make it one of his goals in life to just be a nemesis for your New York Giants.
Absolutely. That's
you
why I
loved
left
him
him off my list.
Yeah, you loved him or hated him with San Francisco. You hated him with Philly. You hated him with Dallas. Terrell Owens, 6-time Pro Bowler, 5-time All-Pro in the Hall of Fame.
There's a picture for you.
Let's see. Yeah, there we go.
I didn't give you the Cowboys pictures.
that was a moment when even I hated him, but of course, when he was on my team, I loved him. Over his career, 15 years, I believe. Let's see, 219 games started, 1,078 receptions, just shy of 16,000 yards, and 153 touchdowns. He had 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 seasons over 1,000 yards receiving. He was just as unstoppable at times as anybody in the game, and despite his antics, anybody would have taken him on their team.
Yeah,
maybe not the Giants, but
most people did too. He was on
yeah. Well, listen, I think he played with Buffalo and Cincinnati late in his career, and
right.
Actually had kind of a productive season with Cincinnati, but they really didn't have anybody else to throw to. But again, just a guy that chafed almost everyone around him, but an undeniable talent and really one of the all-time receiver divas and deserving of everything that comes with that title because he was just that damn good.
And he far less the rest.
Far less. Yes.
Yeah.
He didn't attend his Pro Football Hall of Fame induction, did he?
No.
And, he boycotted it.
He should have sent a Native American, like Woody at the Oscars or Marlon Brando at the Oscars.
Somebody, yeah, exactly. But crazy. Yeah, well, you know what? Absolutely.
Personality aside, I mean, I think I had him highest on the list of anybody.
You had him higher than you had him higher than me because he would have slotted in around 11 or 12 for me, so he didn't make my list. So.
Yeah, I think I had him at 7. Maybe.
Yeah, I think I had him at 4 or 5, but his numbers are, and people remember him with Dallas, I think, because it's Dallas and it was a much higher profile.
Right.
But he really carried that 49ers team for a while there.
He definitely did. And you know what? I mean, my favorite footage of him though was news conference after the Cowboys lost to the Giants in the divisional game in 2007. Talking about Romo. It's my quarterback, man. But feelings aside, his numbers were great. He was just a really good receiver. He really was. And yes, I guess deserving of the list. Wasn't on mine, but yeah, he should be on there in some form or facet. So
and as an announcer and a commentator, he makes Keyshawn Johnson seem like Charlie Rose.
I thought, isn't that the new team
That's
up?
right.
Keyshawn Johnson and Charlie Rose show.
It's the new NPR. Yeah, actually, it's Keyshawn Johnson and Terrell Owens on All Things Considered on NPR.
Oh man.
They're bringing back Crossfire.
That's right. Yeah,
There
They're
you
going
go.
to
That's
put those two guys on.
Put those
That's
two
right.
guys in crossfire. That should prove to be interesting. Throw Plaxico Burress in there, and you got a great show.
Yeah.
Crossfire.
Just make sure you have a metal detector.
It's like Crossfire, only with more
Yeah.
fire, more.
Or more.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we don't want to invite Plexico Burris to anything with crossfire and it's
Show up.
yes.
I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah.
That's not what we meant, Flex.
Yes.
We'll
Here,
be
please put on your steel-toed boots and sit over here.
I gotta love it. Anyway, number 8, Terrell Owens. All right, I'll take number 7 on that note. Folks, number 7 is Mr. Chris Carter. Mr. Chris Darren Carter. That's his name. I did leave out the middle name on the other one. Chris Darren Carter. Chris Carter was drafted in the supplemental draft in 1987, round 4, by the Eagles. Folks, you remember him on the Vikings, but he was drafted by the Eagles in the supplemental draft, and there he is right there. He was an 8-time Pro Bowler once he got to Minnesota. He had a couple of decent seasons, not so much his rookie year, but he had a couple of decent seasons. He played for 3 years in Philly, and then in 1990 he went to Minnesota for 12 years, and that's where he shined. Just an insane receiver, 8-time Pro Bowler, 8 years in a row, 93 through 2000. He was 2-time first-team All-Pro, second-team All-Pro in 95. In 99, he won the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year award. He was the NFL receptions leader in 94, 3-time NFL receiving touchdowns leader in 95, 97, and 99. Part of the NFL 1990s All-Decade team. And his number 80 in Minnesota is retired. He's part of the Vikings Ring of Honor. And he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Didn't make it the first couple of years. Actually, I think it was 4 or 5 years took him to get in there, but he eventually did. And there was there's some criticism as to why he didn't go in his first or second year, but just crazy good numbers. Again, he had some injuries too, and then he came out of retirement basically in October. When he left Minnesota, he tried out for a couple teams. Then came out of retirement in October of 2002 and joined the Miami Dolphins for the rest of that year and had a few good games. Didn't catch a lot of balls, didn't have a lot thrown to him, but did make a statement enough to bolster his numbers. He just was he was fun to watch too. He really was.
Just kind of Mr. Consistency.
Yeah.
And great hands. Great hands. Probably for future generations, a guy who is not as well known as he should be and sort of underrated, but no denying his talent.
The Vikings have had some good wide receivers over the history of their team. I mean, you look at him and Ahmad Rashad and Randy Moss, and that's a pretty good list.
Yeah, that's a nice trio right there.
Yeah, if they could have only had a time machine and had them all play at the same time.
That would have been nice. That would have been really nice. Yeah, I mean, he was part of that run for the Vikings. I mean, they were relevant. The Vikings were relevant throughout the 90s, and he was a big part and parcel of it, no matter who the quarterback was. I mean, they ran through quarterbacks throughout that time. I mean, he was one of the main consistent players. I mean, I think at one point Jim McMahon was the quarterback of the Vikings. Was it 93, maybe 94, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, 90. I remember sitting at Giants game in Giants Stadium back in, I think it was 97, and Giants had the game won, and the Vikings just stormed back, and he was part of that game, and they won. Vikings won by a point. I was not a happy camper.
No.
In fact, I think you were there that day with me, and it was not a pretty it's not a pretty sight for me.
No.
So.
It's almost as bad as Flipper Anderson running down the corridors of Giant Stadium.
That was one of my favorite memories.
That was actually that one edges out the Vikings game for me.
Yeah,
Harry. So
yeah.
But in any event, there you go. Number 7, Chris Carter. Why don't you take number 6 there, Harry?
Number 6 is Don Hudson, who might I think he probably also wind up maybe in the top 10 NFL players of all time. Played for the Packers really early on in 1935 to 45. He was also a coach from 44 to 48. So in his last 2 years, he was also an assistant coach and a player. For a lot of his career, he played offense, defense, and special teams, as a lot of people did back then. But he had 488 receptions, almost 8,000 receiving yards, 99 touchdowns receiving. He also had 30 interceptions and was the kicker. And he was a 3-time NFL champion, an 8-time All-Pro, 2-time NFL Most Valuable Player, 8 times reception leader, 7 times receiving yards leader, and 9-time receiving touchdown leaders. So here's, I think, what really stands out is that he was the NFL 1930s All-Decade team, and then he was the NFL's 50, 75th, and 100th anniversary all-time team.
Yeah,
I mean, talk about somebody who was part of those Green Bay Packers teams that revolutionized the game. Those numbers are incredible. For 90, almost 100 touchdowns in a 10-year or 11-year career back then, that's incredible.
Yeah.
While playing defense and kicking.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, I'll be an assistant coach as well.
Right. That's like Bugs Bunny first base, Bugs Bunny second base,
Right.
Bugs Bunny. Crazy. Yeah, those old-time players. I mean, they played every way they possibly could. They didn't want to leave the field.
No.
They really didn't. They just wanted to keep playing.
All this with a leather helmet on.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah,
just look at that picture.
Look at that picture again. Look at that.
Yeah.
That's how he played the game. You know, no face mask, leather helmet.
Yeah. He was the opposite of the what we're seeing today with receivers.
Yeah.
Imagine asking Antonio Brown to play safety for a few.
Well, he might do it. He's insane enough that he might do it.
But he play it for the other team.
Yeah. There you go, folks. Number 6, Don Hutson.
Don Hutson.
Pete, why don't you bring us to number 5?
Number 5 is I can't say he was underrated, but sort of quietly great, I guess you could say. Of course, he had a quarterback thrown to him for a lot of years who got a lot of attention to Peyton Manning. It's Marvin Harrison, of course, I'm talking about. Of the Colts, his entire career, actually, I think was how many years? 12, 13 years?
Yeah.
Just crazy good. Again, a model of consistency. 1,102 receptions, 14,580 yards, 128 touchdowns. He was the go-to guy for Peyton Manning in the heyday. Only won one Super Bowl, unfortunately, but he was an 8-time Pro Bowler and a 3-time All-Pro, as well as a member of the Hall of Fame and the All-2000s team, the Hall of Fame All-2000s team. One of the few guys who played his whole career with the same team, beloved, and part of a really, what I would say, one of the more outstanding receiving tandems in NFL history, along with Harrison and Reggie Wayne. And of course, they had one of the great quarterbacks in Peyton Manning throwing to him. But Marvin Harrison, if you wanted to sort of have a prototype for the sometimes spectacular, but mostly just sort of a workman, go about his job and get it done well receiver, that's Marvin Harrison. You can't find a better role model than that.
Yeah, he was really fun to play. Fun to play. He was really fun to watch when he played. That connection. Whenever Peyton Manning dropped back, and it was going to be a long throw, you knew damn well Marvin Harrison was getting the ball, and you just wanted to see not if he caught the ball, how he caught the ball.
Yeah, that was exactly it. You knew what was going to happen,
right?
And you were still amazed that it happened and how it happened, and no matter what defenses did, it was still happening, and that was really the joy. You were like, well, we know what's going to go on here, but let's watch it unfold, and it was usually pretty amazing.
Exactly, crazy. But I always like watching him. What about you, Harry? Do you like watching Mr. Marvin Harrison?
Yeah, I mean, I think a number of the receivers that played on the Colts during that era are kind of underrated. I think they fell into the shadow of Peyton Manning. But you look at what Marvin Harrison did, and he's certainly deserving of the spot on this list, and one of the best. I mean, he was also clutch. It seemed like when the game was on the line and Manning really needed to go to somebody, he was definitely his go-to guy.
Oh yeah, and it was gonna be a completion. You didn't really have any doubt.
No,
you really didn't.
And just talk about just played the game. Never heard anything out of him.
Yep.
I'm not sure I've ever heard him talk, but
I'm sure he has.
Yeah, so the first mute wide receiver on the list.
There you go.
But yeah, one of I'm glad he made our list because I think he's an easy person to overlook.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. Number 5, Marvin Harrison. There you go. All right, I'm going to take number 4. And we're gonna jump into looking at Mr. Steve Largent. Mr. Stephen Michael Largent, to be exact. He was drafted in the 4th round of the 1976 draft as the 117th pick overall. But it wasn't by the Seahawks, though. It was by the Oilers. Houston drafted him. He went to Seattle. He was only on the practice squad. He got cut, and then Seattle picked him up. He was on the Seahawks from 76 through 89. And if you recall back, if anybody's watching, recalls back to Seattle back in 76, they weren't much of a team back then, but they started coming around, and Steve Largent was part and parcel of that. That rise there. He was just again another amazing wide receiver to watch play. 7-time Pro Bowler, 78, 79, 81, and then 84 through 87. His first team All-Pro in 85, 4-time second team All-Pro. He was NFL Man of the Year in 88. He was a 2-time receiving yards leader in 79 and 85. He was part of the 100th anniversary all-time team, part of the 80s all-decade team. And he's Seattle Ring of Honor, number 80 retired. He won the Bart Starr Award in 89. Just so many different things. But afterwards, he got into politics, and he was a member of the House of Representatives from Oklahoma for 8 years. So he had another career after his great wide receiver career. But that was always fun to watch whenever in this area of the country anyway. Whenever there was a Seattle game, and it usually meant that they were playing either the Giants or the Jets, or it was a national game with the Cowboys or Steelers or something. When and back then too, Seattle was in the AFC. They weren't an NFC team when they played. So it was even less because you got a lot of NFC games in this area. But whenever you watched him play, he was fun to watch run around the field. He was a really good wide receiver, and he was right about there on my list, right where he falls, number 4.
Yeah, I think like probably a lot of people on these lists over the weeks. I think when he retired, he held just about every receiving record there was. If you think about Seattle players, the famous players, right? We think about Largent, probably Zorn.
Jim Zorn, yeah, definitely.
Right, and not necessarily for greatness, but just the guys that we kind of knew.
Sure.
Largent and Zorn were a hell of a
Largent
combo.
and Zorn, and maybe for dubious reasons, Bosworth might be. I mean, that's the other name that kind of comes to me.
Absolutely.
But Largent was certainly, he was kind of the face of that franchise, and maybe the only person or the only thing that a lot of the country kind of knew about Seattle, but everybody knew how good he was.
Yeah, exactly. It was a fun time in football. It's a fun time now, but back then it was a little more gritty, and guys like Steve Largent were part of making it fun back then. So
and to think, these guys played for years.
Yeah.
At a time, like we talk about how untouchable. How much is skewed in favor of the offense now, and how the defense is handcuffed in so many ways.
Sure.
These guys were getting beat up. They were getting pounded with regularity, but they were out there game after game, week after week, year after year.
The guys today got beaten, pounded like guys back then got beaten, pounded. You wouldn't see them their careers lasting more than 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of shuffling off the practice squad. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Yes, Seattle had some good teams back then. I mean, they had the other Kurt Warner too. That was kind of the trio of Zorn, Largent and Kurt Warner, the running back, who I think was like a 3 or 4 time Pro Bowler.
Right.
They had a pretty good offense. They were fun to watch.
And kind of, and it was, if you didn't necessarily have any skin in the game as far as any particular game that they were in, if they weren't going against your team, who wouldn't root for Seattle, right? They were, sort of a hard luck franchise, and they didn't.
And the best uniforms.
And good uniforms too. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All hail the Water Chickens.
And just as an aside too, in 1989, Steve Largent became the first Seahawks player to win the Steve Largent Award.
I think it was fixed though.
Is that called patting yourself on the back then?
I guess so.
There was a box of ballots that disappeared.
He won it. I think they inaugurated that award that year and gave it to him, obviously, because he retired. But I just love how it was mentioned. Largent became the first Seahawks player to win the Steve Largent Award.
That's good.
And he still has the trophy. And
I couldn't think of anybody more deserving.
All the following winners, they don't get to hang on to the trophy. No, it's mine. It's mine.
The most recent winner of it was Russell Wilson, and he won it the last 2 years in a row. Cam Chancellor has won it. Richard Sherman won it. Earl Thomas won it.
Kurt Cobain won it in '91, I think.
Back in 03, the Seahawks quarterback in 03 won it, and that would be Mr. Trent Dilfer. Do I say it again? No, I'm not going to say it.
No.
Dilfer. All right. Anyway,
didn't he win a Super Bowl too?
Oh yeah, you're going to go there, aren't you?
Yeah, he didn't make our top 10 though.
He didn't make our top 10.
No.
All right, number 4, Steve Largent. Why don't you take number 3 there, Harry?
Number 3 is Larry Fitzgerald. I think the first one on our list who's still currently playing. Am I correct there?
Yeah, the only one on our list.
The only one on our list. I mean, I think, obviously if Larry Fitzgerald is still making an impact in this league, but he's one of these guys who I think talk about the face of a franchise. I think he's been the face of the Cardinals for a really long time here. 11-time Pro Bowler, over 17,000 receiving yards, 120 touchdowns. And that's before this year, so I'm sure those numbers have gone up. He just continues. 2 times NFL reception leader, 2 times NFL receiving touchdown leader. He was part of the NFL 100th anniversary all-time team. And, when all is said and done, he's one of maybe a handful of people who you can maybe make a case against who's going to be our inevitable number 1. And kind of a stand-up guy. He was grinding it out on Cardinals teams for a long time there that weren't necessarily world beaters. Right. But he's had a long career. He's been playing since 2004, and he continues to just be one of the best ever in the game. And he's a minority owner of the Phoenix Suns. I'm not sure that's something to write home about. Maybe not as good as the Steve Largent Award, but interesting nonetheless.
Absolutely. I thought you were giving all those numbers before. I thought you were going to say, instead of saying, and that was not including this, I thought you were going to say, and that was just this year.
Just this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now listen, don't sleep on the Suns.
Don't sleep on the Suns.
As Tony Kornheiser says, they're 2 years away from being 2 years away.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. But Larry Fitzgerald, I think one of the best ever and a surefire Hall of Famer.
He's definitely solidified that place on there. I think it's going to be like we said before. There's going to be a lot of players, and that can hold true for any list. There can be any list we've done so far. There can be players that are going to supplant on anybody on the list, but I don't think it's going to be tough for any one of them to crack the top 4 or 5. So I think on our list anyway, I think Larry Fitzgerald's pretty well settled in at the number 3 spot for a long time coming. So
I mean the one thing that we're seeing on this list is that these guys, everybody on this list have had pretty extensive careers, and there's some receivers right now, whether it's the Tyreek Hills of the world or whoever, that are having great seasons, and obviously the passing numbers and the receiving numbers, yardage wise, touchdown wise, continue to go up.
Right.
But let's see if they do it for 12 years. Let's see if in their year 10 they're able to transition to the number 2 receiver and contribute.
Right.
Let's see what they're really able to do long term. I think but the potential for there to be 4 or 5 people on this list based on the receivers that are currently in the league. I don't doubt that.
But
Yeah,
it's a crazy good list, and I'm happy he's where he is. And I think we were pretty much in lockstep there with our number 3 and 2 and 1 for that matter. But,
yeah, I think we certainly all had Fitzgerald in the top 3 or 4, right. I believe, and deservedly so. Yeah. And a guy you kind of want to win. Yeah, again, unless your team is a direct rival. Yeah. Who doesn't root for Larry Fitzgerald?
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. Number 3, Larry Fitzgerald. Why don't you take us to number 2 there, Radio Pete?
All right, number 2, the big man himself, Randy, and I'll throw in his middle name, Gene, with a G. Randy Gene Moss.
Randy Gene Moss.
The Freak. Of course, Hall of Fame, 6-time Pro Bowl, 4-time All-Pro, on the Hall of Fame All-2000s team, comeback player of the year in 2007. No Super Bowls, though.
Nope.
But could you say about Randy Moss, he was an unrivaled talent? I think you could say that. Is there anybody who's quite like Randy Moss? Probably not.
No.
So T.O. comes to mind.
T.O.'s pretty close, but if you had to pick, you'd if you were building a team, even though he doesn't come in number 1 on our list, I think you could make a case to take Randy Moss over even maybe like a Jerry Rice.
Yeah.
But anyway, quick numbers: 982 receptions, 15,292 yards, 156 touchdowns, 15.6 on the receiving average. Pretty good numbers. Talk about a guy who goes up and gets it. Incredible speed. And yes, the knock on him, he took plays off. Didn't always give it at all if he was not involved in the play, if he was not the target. But still an undeniable talent. Great seasons with Minnesota, of course, and then had a couple of years with Oakland. And we remember him probably best with New England. I think, was it 50 touchdowns that Brady threw to Randy Moss?
Sounds about right, yeah. Somewhere
one of those years.
49.
49, there you go. So, just an incredible talent. There really was no one quite like Randy Moss, and I would say there hasn't been anyone quite like him since then. So despite the knocks against him, anybody would take Randy Moss on their team if you were starting a team today. I think I will say that without fear of contradiction.
And you know what? There's the joke. It's not even a joke or whatever. An award that he gives, when he's commentating or whatever. You've been mossed.
Yeah.
But there's a reason for that. He those catches that he gives those phrases out to, that was him.
Right. Yeah. That. If he wasn't burning you with his speed and getting open, or he wasn't throwing a double move on you and getting open, even if he was double covered or triple covered, then you just throw it up there anyway, and he'll go get it. So there really wasn't, there wasn't a situation where you would say you wouldn't throw it to Randy Moss. And in many, other than a guy standing wide open on, let's say, the other side of the end zone, there really weren't too many situations where that wasn't your best passing option, even if he was covered.
I would say him and Calvin Johnson were those two guys who you could just throw it into the corner of the end zone and somehow they're going to just come down with it. Just their athletic ability and their size was just fast, tall, and great hands.
Right. I'm glad he went with "you've been mossed" though instead of his middle name. You've been gened. It doesn't hold the same.
Well, if he comes out with a line of dungarees, then
you could just say dungarees.
Yeah, I did because I didn't want to say jeans because his slogan would be
dungarees. Ladies and gentlemen, for anyone who was born after 1970, dungarees are what our grandparents called jeans.
Yeah.
Our parents might have mentioned dungarees too.
Well, I didn't want to use the word jean because
I understand where he was going.
Oh, I'm impressed with the dungaree reference. I'm not.
Listen, I worked at an oldie station for a number of years.
Right.
I think I can't remember the artist, but Dungaree Doll, I believe, was the song.
Now, would have been a much better middle name, Randy Dungaree Moss.
Randy Dungaree. Oh, that would have been great. You've been dungareed.
That would be good. That would be classic.
I'm gonna bring back dungarees.
Dungarees. Bring back dungarees. Well, everything old is new again, right? So
I gotta go to Costco and get a new pair of dungarees.
Listen, you'll have seniors. I'll go with you.
That's right.
I'll take a ride with you.
Yeah.
All right, number 2, Randy Moss.
Number 2, Randy Moss. That's great. All right.
Beaten by the Giants. Beaten by the Giants. Beaten by the Giants.
Beaten by the Giants. All right. That brings us to number 1. And as if anybody had to guess who our number 1 player is, of course, that would be none other than Mr. Jerry Lee Rice Sr.
Oh,
Jerry Lee Rice Sr. Jerry Rice, folks, I watch this guy. I've seen him play. I've been at games more than one and watched this man play. He had a 20-year career and almost tried to have a 21-year career, too. It's just an amazing, amazing athlete this man was. I mean, he was drafted in the first round, 16th pick overall in 1985 by the 49ers, obviously. And went on to he had a 16-year career with the 49ers. Just the things he achieved. I mean, he won 3 Super Bowls. Super Bowl in 2 in the 80s and 1 in the 90s. He was a Super Bowl MVP of Super Bowl 23. He's 2-time NFL Offensive Player of the Year in 87 and in 93. He was 10-time first-team All-Pro. 10-time first-team All-Pro. 86 through 90 and 92 through 96. He was second-team All-Pro in the years he wasn't, basically. 13-time Pro Bowler, folks. Pretty much, the majority of his career with the 49ers, he was going to the Pro Bowl. Insane, and it goes on, too. I mean, NFL reception leader twice. 6-time NFL receiving touchdowns leader, part of the 75th anniversary all-time team. Of course, he was part of the 100th anniversary all-time team. His first team NFL 80s all-decade team, first team NFL 90s all-decade team. He was Offensive Rookie of the Year in his rookie season in 85. But Sports Illustrated Player of the Year in 86. This guy was just he burst onto the scene and didn't quit. And he kept playing. He had a 16-year career with the 49ers. And then he went to the Raiders and played 4 good years with the Raiders too. Finished up his career bouncing around. He went to Seattle for a year, and then he tried to make it a 21st year in Denver, but didn't pan out. He was done. He was done. But a couple of interesting notes though. I mean, he had a 274 game receiving streak. What receiver has a 274 game receiving streak? What
receiver can even play half those games?
You got to play 274
exactly.
or more.
It's a lot of games.
Exactly. He had 22 receiving touchdowns in 87. Just crazy numbers. In 1990, he had a 225-yard 5 touchdown game. in 1990, and just to give you a little background on that year for the 49ers, they were going for their 3rd Super Bowl in a row, and of course, obviously, I'm gloating because they lost to the Giants in the championship game that year, and the Giants went on to win the Super Bowl. But that year, the Giants after Week 10, the Giants and the 49ers were both 10-0. And heading for a matchup in Week 11. They both Week 12. They both lost in Week 11, and they met each other at 10-1. But it was a crazy season for specifically not talking about the Giants, obviously talking about the 49ers and Jerry Rice. Again, that game that was part of the 10-game winning streak that they had. 225-yard, 5 touchdown receiving game. It was crazy. And then they did it again in 95. He had a 289-yard, 3 touchdown receiving game in 5 years later in 95.
Yeah.
Just crazy numbers with this guy. Insane.
The Michael Jordan of wide receivers. I mean, he is.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think of 2 guards, everybody, I mean, there's some idiots who will argue, LeBron or somebody else, but Jerry Rice is I think when you think of wide receivers, you think of Jerry Rice.
Yeah. How can you not?
I don't know.
If you don't,
anything to add to that?
well, if you have no idea what football is, then you might think of someone else. But
you could think of somebody else, yeah. But Jerry Rice was he's the preeminent wide receiver. I mean, he just epitomizes what a wide receiver is and was and pretty much always will be. And he's the benchmark for any wide receiver in this league. I don't care how good any of these new wide receivers are, and some of them are fantastic, and all the others on our list, and some of the ones that didn't make it too, they really were. I mean, you can't take anything away from them, but Jerry Rice was just he's the benchmark, and until somebody else comes along that does what he did for as long as he did it for, he's going to be the benchmark. So,
and that'll probably never ever happen.
Probably not.
And I hate him anyway because he played for the 49ers. And you guys should hate him too.
We actually beat him.
We beat him, so.
But he had a pretty good quarterback thrown to him.
He did.
Yeah.
It was a
pretty good coach and pretty.
We
good.
had a couple of pretty good quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Wow.
Matter of fact, I think its numbers with Steve Young were better than they were with Montana.
And he
I think he had more touchdowns with Steve Young, and
maybe. Well, they threw the ball more.
Right, but it's not like, well, forget it. I don't want Montana. I'll take Young if I'm Jerry Rice. I think you'd take either one of them.
Well, he had more years with Steve Young too.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
yeah.
All right, Jerry Rice, number one.
Well, there you go, Jerry Rice, number one.
These lists are anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should do it in the reverse. You think?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, maybe people. Well, gosh, who's number?
Or just
9?
pick a surprise number one.
All right. Well, that brings us to this week's segment of Old Balls.
Ah, yes.
Harry, why don't you tell us who this week's Old Balls is?
This week's Old Balls is a gentleman who is actually on my top 10 list, but did not make the final cut. He was somebody who I think was ubiquitous in the 70s and early 80s when you were watching football. And he's none other than John Stallworth, who played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, part of maybe one of the best wide receiver duos to ever play the game together with Lynn Swann. And I think he got overshadowed a little bit by Lynn Swann because of Lynn Swann's grace and, some of his high-profile catches in games over the years. But John Stallworth played for, 14 seasons for the Steelers.
Yeah.
Won 4 Super Bowls. Was a 3-time Pro Bowler. His receiving yards, he had almost 9,000 receiving yards with 63 touchdowns. But what really made Stallworth stand out and why I added him to this week's list is that he played on a team that was run first, was geared around their incredible defense. He did share the load with not only a really great running back, but also with an equally as good wide receiver. But his numbers were better than Swann's. And when you look at him in total and the fact that he came up so big in the playoffs and in Super Bowl games, in fact, some of the most memorable catches in Super Bowl history, one which wound him on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and I think it was the Steelers' win of their fourth and final championship, where he caught a 73-yard touchdown pass. He also caught a 75-yard touchdown pass over the Cowboys in a Super Bowl. I mean, for somebody who was a kid, 9, 10, 11 years old during the Super Bowls against Dallas, John Stallworth, he just stood out. And he was a tough player who battled a lot of injuries to his feet and ankles and knees and hamstrings over the years, but still managed to play. In 1984, after battling injuries, he came back and had 80 receptions for over almost 1,400 yards and 11 touchdowns, and won the NFL Comeback Player of the Year. So I don't know. He's one of these guys who, when I think about that era of football, there's a couple guys who jump out to me. Another one's Charlie Joyner. They didn't necessarily match up to what you would see in today's statistics, but they were incredible. And again, on a team that didn't necessarily maybe threw the ball 20 times a game on a good game, he wound up really putting up some impressive numbers, and his ability to get in the end zone, 63 touchdowns, including really, really great games in the Super Bowls.
Right.
He's one of my favorites, and I think one of the most underrated players. And again, the Steelers have had a lot of great receivers since him, whether it's Hines Ward or Antonio Brown. But if you go back and watch some film of Lynn Swann and John Stallworth, those guys were unbelievable. And I picked John Stallworth just because I feel like he's in the shadow a little bit sometimes.
He definitely is. And that year you said, too, he won on 84 when he won the NFL Comeback Player of the Year. He had statistically had his best year ever.
Yeah.
Almost 1,400 yards receiving he had that year. But yeah, he was you're absolutely right. Lynn Swann, while a great receiver himself, just totally overshadowed John Stallworth. He was, he was the grit behind Swann's flash, basically.
Yeah, some of the acrobatics of Swann got a lot of attention, but Stallworth was had the better numbers and was more of a go-to guy. No question about that.
Yeah, and he had that year in '84. I think Swann was gone by then, if I'm not mistaken. So he kind of became their number one target.
Yeah.
So Hall of Famer, and this week's Old Balls, Mr. John Stallworth.
Absolutely. There you go. Old Bulls, John Stallworth.
Old Balls.
There you go. Very, very nice. All right. Well, that brings us out of football.
What?
Yeah.
We hardly talked about it though.
I'm not talking golf.
No, we're not talking golf. We're not talking golf. We are talking. Let's jump into Major League Baseball just for a quick second. There's a couple things going on. Just reported today. Robinson Cano with the Mets suspended for the entire 2021 season due to taking performance-enhancing drugs.
What?
Yeah, I mean, really? Not Cano. He wouldn't.
It's hard to believe.
Shocked.
Well, he's never done that before.
Never.
Oh, wait, except for
that other time.
2018.
Time before that. And
yeah. Well.
Yeah. Well, at least, look at it this way. It does save the Mets $24 million this year. So.
Yeah. Well, and listen, he's proving that steroids work.
Yeah.
I think that argument can be put to rest.
Well, yeah, because he sucked the year before, and then all of a sudden he was really good this past year, right? And so, I wonder.
That was a bad deal. Sorry, that was a bad deal, and fine if he's not on the field. They got a few other guys that can be the DH.
Yeah, exactly. And
they don't need him.
Honestly, though, it opens it up because we've all been saying though, McNeil needs to play second base, and there you go. Now McNeil can play second base. So. And we'll go from there. And but unfortunately, still has 2 years on his contract afterwards, right? Or no, 1 year after next year because it was been 2 this year. Yeah, so, but there you go. Robinson Cano's out, and there's a lot of a buzz on the Theo Epstein wire to stepping down from the president of baseball operations with the Cubs, and now everybody's calling for him to. Jump into the Mets role, but I read a couple of things saying that Epstein's looking to move up, if you will, like take on a president of team president, Sandy Alderson's role right now. He's looking for that, or even part of an ownership group or something like that. But I say, you know what, if he can come over and he brought Boston a World Series, he brought the Cubs after over 100 years. He brought them a World Series. And, come do it for the Mets. And Alderson has already said he's going to be there for a few years, and then that's it. So Epstein can move up to his role after that and go from there. There's your in on there. That's just my take. What do you think?
Well, Epstein says he wants to take a year off.
Well, that's what
and then saying. That's what he said. And we'll take him at his word for now. But he's also said that he is going to have a third chapter in baseball. So right. I think that I certainly have nothing against Sandy Alderson, and I guess if Epstein, let's say he takes a year off, fine, but then he comes back, and if he wants Sandy Alderson's job, you give him Sandy Alderson's job, and you say, right. And maybe that Alderson does something else, and you say thanks, but we're going to take the guy who did what you just said, took Boston and the Cubs and won World Series with them.
Right.
And I think Alderson would understand that.
Sure.
So if he's not going to wait a year, and then I don't know, maybe you say, well, how about you just kind of be GM for a year, and then you can have the job after that. If he won't go for that, and he wants to come to New York, then we find something else for Sandy to do.
Right, exactly.
Nothing against him, but I mean, you're talking about a guy who's got kind of an unprecedented amount of success.
Sure.
Right, in that role in Theo Epstein.
Mm-hmm.
So, and boy, wouldn't it be great to have him across town, so to speak, nice. from the Bronx Bombers. I mean, that would just be poetry coming back, with the evil empire and all that stuff.
Exactly.
And he made good. He went to Boston and said, we're going to beat the evil empire, and he made good. So it'd be great. It'd be great to have him in Queens if he wants to come, whether it's this year or next year or whatever. You bring him in.
Bring him in.
Yeah, he's gotten them closer. 27-3 now.
27-3. There you go. Where you said, well, maybe maybe he winds up with the Yankees. Maybe Cashman wants to pack it in soon.
Cashman's not packing it in, unfortunately. I mean, I like.
Well, that's Cashman, but does anybody have?
Why would you leave that job?
Right. And why would Epstein take that job? I mean, they're a quote unquote perennial winner. So, what did Epstein do at that point to win the Yankees another World Series?
Yeah, I don't think that's kind of the gig that he wants. Let me go to the most successful franchise and do what somebody's done 27 other times.
Right.
He's good at winning championships for teams that haven't won it in 50 plus years. So.
Right.
Yeah. Now, and listen, if he really doesn't like the Yankees, what is the better way to stick it to the Yankees than go to the Mets?
Sure.
Right.
Right, that's better than going to Boston or anyone else in the division. Right. Go to the crosstown redheaded stepchildren and help them win and help them take back the city.
Exactly.
Well, not that we ever really had the city, but that if that's part of his agenda or part of his motivation, there's no better place than Queens.
It'd be a great fit,
and it'd be a great story. It'd be great drama. We might have to spend 5 or 6 minutes less on football and talk about baseball if that happens.
Exactly.
Even in the off season.
Exactly. Well, that pretty much sums up our hot stove for this week. There's not a whole hell of a lot going on. Things will heat up as they get further, but let's bring this to something that's a little bit more pressing at this particular moment in time, and that would be a little NBA talk. I want to start it off by announcing that the NBA draft actually started a little while ago, and the Knicks have picked. The Knicks selected Obi Toppin.
Not Johan Porzingis, the younger brother of Kristaps?
Nope.
No.
I thought they were going to go that way. Who's Obi Toppin? Is that...
this isn't a bad pick. I think he played for the University of Dayton. He's power forward, 6'8". I mean, I don't know. Our 6'8", 220-pound power forwards really fit into the NBA these days.
That's what the Knicks need, right? They don't need a point guard or anything like that.
Yeah,
they need a power forward, right?
Yeah, just
what number pick was that?
6, 8.
Eighth.
Eighth. Okay. All right. So, well, they're the Knicks.
Let's see what the draft has brought here. We got. Oh, geez.
How many of these names will I know? I could probably go over
3.
3, you think? All right, I'll be honest, too.
Yeah.
There we go. First pick in the draft, the Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards. And not the
actor?
Not the actor.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
I didn't know. He's got game, apparently.
He's got game, apparently,
too.
Right. And the Warriors had the number 2 pick. They pick James Wiseman. From what you call it? Where do you play? Memphis.
Where's Edwards from?
Edwards is from Georgia.
Yeah, and that was as expected, I think. Yeah.
That's what I expected.
LaMelo Ball went 3rd. He went to Charlotte.
Okay, him I've heard of.
Yeah. I wonder why.
His father didn't have anything to do with it.
No, not because of his basketball playing. Because of his entry into the most obnoxious father contest.
There you go. The 4th pick was by the Bulls, Patrick Williams. He was in Florida State.
Okay.
The 5th pick was Isaac Okoro. That would be the Cavs. He came from Auburn.
Okay.
You would bear with me on the sixth pick here. Onyeka
Okongwu,
Him,
Onyeka Okongwu.
I have not heard of.
There you go.
Southern California.
Southern California, USC, Atlanta Hawks.
Okay.
Tim, we'll do the top 10. The seventh pick in the draft was Killian Hayes, and he comes out of France. Played in France.
For the first time this year in several years, I have not been following French basketball.
Yes. Point guard, though. And I like this pick.
For the Pistons?
Yeah.
He's no Frederick Weiss.
Well, he could be the next Tony Parker, though.
There you go.
He's a tall point guard, too. I mean, relatively tall at 6'5".
All right.
Well, there you go. And then that brings us to number 8, Obi Toppin. It's from Dayton. This is the first. Most of these draft grades so far have been A's, A minuses, B pluses, B's. This is the first. This is the lowest draft grade so far in the top 10. It was B minus.
And that who's doing the grading?
That would be. Let's see who wrote this article.
Is it like the ESPN experts or?
Yeah, it's the Yahoo Sports experts.
Oh, okay.
That's where I got this coming up on. But
so a bunch of Yahoos grades
Yahoos
as a C.
Exactly. But at least it wasn't a C or a D. I mean, he got a B minus. But his pre-draft rank was 4, so he fell to 8. But
are we talking about Obi?
That means he's a
Obi, yeah.
I think this is a good pick. You know, and he averaged I think he averaged 20 and 8 last year in college. I mean, he's pretty athletic. He's pretty dynamic. He can play defense. Right. He's got a wingspan that's makes him a little taller than, a little longer than what his height is. This, again, it just adds to a roster of young Knicks players who are really looking for somebody to build around. Who's gonna step up and be that star player on the Knicks? I don't know, but
they would hope it would be Barrett, but
yeah,
I don't know if he's capable of that.
We've been saying this for years, yeah. And not about Barrett, but about a lot of the Knicks top picks. Sure. It just doesn't. They seem to draft. Like, where does this guy play next to Barrett? Does Barrett move? I don't know. The Knicks are a conundrum. I don't want to go there because it's
too depressing.
It's a little
as depressing as the Giants are. The Knicks are way worse.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the Giants want to do a jig for.
Yeah. Now I feel better about Daniel Jones when I think about who owns the Knicks and what. We need a new coach, so let's get somebody that was really mediocre in the 90s when defensive basketball was at its peak. Because if there's one thing all these young players want to do is play defense.
Right.
Yeah, we're gonna return to that style of play here at the Garden.
We're gonna hold the Golden State to 92 points, and
that's gonna bring those veterans running to play at the Garden in the storied franchise and the storied building in the biggest city in the world. Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, to round it out, you got the number 9 pick was Denny Avdija.
Avdija. There you go.
Avdija, yeah. Denny Avdija. He's out of Israel.
Wasn't he in a Star Trek movie?
He was.
He might
V'ger.
V'ger,
yeah.
V'ger, yeah. That was the first one.
He's actually the Voyager 1 space probe.
Voyager 1 space.
He's
actually, I believe it was Voyager 6 was V'ger.
Okay. Well, you're a bigger nerd than I am then.
Apparently we're both, yeah. The nerdometer.
Oh, right. Although it's bad enough that I even brought it up. Avdija? That sounds like a Star Trek movie.
So, Denny Avdija.
He's Serbian-Israeli.
Serbian-Israeli.
So he will kick your ass if you get in his face.
True. There you go. And that was the Wizards, by the way, the Washington Wizards. And the lowest draft grade in the top 10 would be the Suns. That would be Jalen Smith out of Maryland. His draft grade is a C+, slightly less than the Knicks. But, Jalen Smith goes to the Suns.
Yeah, so they're Phoenix is now 2.5 years away from being 2.5 years away.
Right. There you go. 2.5 years, exactly. And Halliburton, who many were picking the Knicks many were thinking the Knicks were going to pick. He fell to 12th. He went to the Kings. Who got a better draft grade with them than the Knicks did. So,
yeah.
Well, listen, I'm a Nets fan, so I'm looking forward to the upcoming season, of course,
right.
And that drama now that may be playing out with James Harden. But what else is going to happen in this draft that's going to make you feel good about the Knicks? If you're a Knicks fan, I don't know.
Nothing.
I'm surprised they didn't go for Halliburton. He's a point guard. I don't know.
Does it make you wonder if they actually have a plan going in?
Oh, they don't know.
Or if they just kind of go, well, who's the best guy there? Or if there's one guy who's got, the whispering in the right ears. And why would you not take a point guard if you're the New York Knicks with the 8th pick?
It's just Tom Thibodeau and James Dolan in a room with a magic 8 ball. And
I don't think Dolan's in. Dolan doesn't know a damn thing about.
Dolan owns the magic 8 ball. That's why he's in the room.
Yeah,
he
gets to hold it and shake
it.
He's got 9 security guards making sure nobody steals his magic 8 ball or says anything bad about him.
Right. Or anything bad about the magic 8 ball.
The Knicks have another first-round pick at 23, so
to waste.
Well, I don't think this pick's bad.
It's not what they need.
Yeah.
It's not what they need, but who knows? They could be looking at trade. They could trade him. They could trade one of the other forwards that they've picked in the last 10 years that are still on the team that are mediocre at best.
Well, you know what? Maybe they're just keying on the trade rumors, and they're hoping that maybe Mr. Westbrook takes a trip northeast.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. I think Russell Westbrook's an incredible talent, and I love how he plays the game. However, I think that his shooting is sometimes suspect, and that's really what the NBA has become about. Right. But it would be way more interesting than watching the current lineup of what the Knicks have. You got RJ Barrett, okay, Kevin Knox, who wasn't he the pick either right before or right after Barrett? Wasn't he a first round pick, Kevin Knox?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Julius Randle, who I think they got from the Lakers, who's their starting power forward, so I don't see this draft pick necessarily starting over him. Mitchell Robinson, who actually looked pretty good last year at times for the Knicks. Mm-hmm. Dennis Smith Jr., again, wasn't he also a top first-round pick? Mm-hmm. They have this ability to make these first-round picks, and they
never really blossom.
They're okay. Yeah. So they got a whole team of okay. Then we'll throw in Taj Gibson and maybe in some other veteran that nobody even knows is still playing in the league anymore.
Right.
And we'll get a vintage '90s coach and hope for the best. I don't know. I don't see where this roster gets them anywhere. The reason why I would say if Russell Westbrook is interested, then you do whatever you have to do to get him there. Because if anything that would do, it would reestablish New York, meaning the Knicks, meaning Manhattan and not Brooklyn, as a destination for free agents. And I think that's what the Knicks need to do again.
Well, that's probably part and parcel, or not part and parcel, but a little bit of the reason why they've been so lackluster in anything, because they're not attracting anybody to come. Melo was the last, big name that they got to come to the Garden.
Well, it has everything to do with the owner.
Yeah.
But Melo didn't come because it's New York.
No.
I think in part he did, but
I think he did actually. But he could have gone. He could have gone somewhere else. He came to New York because he's a New Yorker.
Right. He's a New Yorker, so he kind of wanted to come home. And they offered to pay him a lot of money.
He came to New York because it's New York, not because it was the Knicks. That's what you were saying.
No,
yeah,
I think No, I think back then when Melo came, the Knicks still were a destination. I mean, they had just come up with they got Stoudemire a couple. What was it? 2 years before that. Then I mean, the Knicks had pretty good teams. I mean, people like to poo-poo Melo, but those were pretty good Knicks teams. It's really the end of the Melo era.
I don't know if Westbrook makes other free agents want to come. I mean, who wants to play with him?
I think a lot of people want to play with him.
Superstars? I don't know. Superstars though. I would say. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I don't think Harden wants out of Houston because of Russell Westbrook. I think Harden wants out of Houston because they took his coach away, who was perfect for James Harden. No defense. Do whatever the fuck you want. Here's the ball. Chuck it up, and I mean that's I think part of it. But I think he was happy to have Westbrook there. I don't think Westbrook's really a problem like maybe he was.
No, he's definitely mellowed
early on.
He's definitely mellowed,
and I think I think why Russell Westbrook rubs some people the wrong way, much like Jimmy Butler, said he's got a pretty high level of devotion and expectations. He demands a lot,
and that's why he'd be perfect for the Knicks.
Yeah, I think he'd be good for this young group of guys.
He would bring that toughness. He would bring that spirit, that kind of that New York attitude. And you wouldn't have to settle for shooting outside because he is one of the few guys who can always get to the hoop.
But that's also the problem with him is that he's not a great outside shooter. But
I'm saying he doesn't have to be. No. And look, players, the really great ones, they change over time. And I think you're right. He has kind of mellowed as far as the attitude that always rubbed everybody, it seemed, the wrong way, or he could never stay in one place with other great players. So maybe he's ready to kind of come be a leader, but maybe a little bit more of a quiet leader. But you never know. That's kind of the thing. He can sort of erupt at any time. But I think he would be great for the Knicks.
I think he'd be good. I think he would like the playing in New York, and I think he'd probably like to be across the river from some of maybe two of his ex-teammates. Yeah. And trying to build something in New York, but and
I think you'd get free agents who would want to come, just maybe not anyone else who wants to be the number one.
Yeah,
right. Because Westbrook will be, although he found a way to kind of coexist with Harden. They, certainly last year they were just too small. The small ball experiment was not a success, but he did find a way to coexist with one of the biggest egos in the game in James Harden.
I mean, I think R.J. Barrett was New York's leading scorer, and he averaged under 15 points a game, 14.3 points per game as a shooting guard. I mean, I think there's some talent there on the Knicks. I think if they get Westbrook, they're another player away or two from really doing anything. And I'm not poo-pooing Thibodeau. I think he can do okay, but this isn't a team made up of defensive first team all NBA defensive players who are gonna. But that is one thing Westbrook will give you. I mean, he's a two-way player. He's a good defensive player, and for a regular season team, he'll get you some wins by himself. Yeah. So I would love to see it. I'd like to see any big name player come to the Knicks because it's when Durant decided to go to Brooklyn. I think that was another.
It was the writing on the wall. It was obviously Dolan that he didn't want to deal with.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and again, I don't think certainly for these younger players, the lure of New York, the Mecca and all that, it just really doesn't exist because they haven't been that destination for longer than these guys have been alive.
The top destination's LA, and after that, it's who are my friends? Who do I want to go?
Who do I want to play with?
Team up with.
Right. Yeah, I mean that allure and the mystique of New York, it just doesn't exist anymore for these younger players. They don't they don't have that mindset or those memories the way old folks do.
Here's a backcourt. I mean, Fred VanVleet is a free agent with Toronto. So VanVleet and Westbrook, that's a hell of a backcourt.
Yep.
Yeah. Montrezl Harrell is going to be a free agent with the Clippers. Gordon Hayward, who knows how healthy he is, but the Knicks could, if they wanted to, kind of put together a team here if they could because they got a lot of small forwards and power forwards that are still in their rookie contracts that they can maybe package up and get rid of. And they have a bunch of veterans who are kind of role players who are not necessarily the personality of this team.
Right.
So, they might be able to do something. That'd be nice. I could see Thibodeau coaching a veteran team who buys into defense a little bit more than you're going to give
kids that have never played it.
Yeah, you're going to give them 3 years to put together a team with all forwards and RJ Barrett.
Yeah.
Well, right, and that's the other question is how much time is he actually going to get?
Right. And he's not if he's
Stolen
not putting something together with that,
itchy trigger finger.
Exactly,
So
it's done.
It would be nice to have two relevant teams in the New York metro area.
No, it would be great, and just the flip side of it is that I really, if it doesn't happen and Westbrook doesn't come, then it's time for Knicks fans, maybe led by somebody like a Spike Lee or another top personality, to say, you know what, we got to start boycotting this team until we force Dolan's hand to say, you know what, sell the team, put it in the hands of somebody who's a basketball person who's committed to winning, and let's turn this ship around.
Because we just come across the river.
Well,
show Spike Lee sitting on the sidelines in Brooklyn.
Yeah, he'll be there. That's all. That's what it would take. And after what's happened in recent years at Madison Square Garden, part of me just wants to see them fail with him as their owner, so that we can.
Nothing will change until that happens.
Nothing will change, and
until he's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, they've already failed with him as the owner multiple times, but until he's gone, nothing's really going to change.
And I'm one of the biggest Knicks fans there is, and lived through all of the woulda, coulda, shoulda, maybes of past years. But in recent years, it's just I just have no passion for this team, and actually I've never had an ill will towards an owner of a team more so than Dolan. And especially with how he treated Charles Oakley. Yeah. It's just...
That was horrendous.
It's been a long time since the Knicks were relevant. And I don't see that changing unless... They're not going to draft their way out of this. Sure, if they were able to get Zion... This year's draft didn't have a Zion Williamson.
No.
It doesn't have that player that you can instantaneously build a team around. Mm-hmm. And those are rare. But that's what the NBA has become. Yeah. There's no team that's relevant in the NBA that's built around role players. There's no team.
On that note, really quick, let's just get your quick opinion on the other half of that issue in Houston. What about Harden and his ego and everything else joining with Durant and Irving in Brooklyn? You think that would actually work?
No.
Yeah.
I don't think maybe if you put two basketballs in play, then everybody might get enough shots. Look, Harden turned down.
What are they going to? I mean, they scored 55 points each a game.
He turned down
170 something.
Turned down $100 million to stay in Houston, so he doesn't want to be there.
Right.
If Houston is going to, and they've got, I think, him for 2 more years. He's on a contract for 2 more years.
2 years, yeah, 2-year contract.
So if they make a trade with the Nets and don't get, and obviously Kyrie Irving. Of him and Durant would be the one who goes, then I don't know. I mean, if you're talking about really blowing it up in Houston, then that would be the way to go. Let's just get rid of anybody who's anybody and start from scratch. But you would think that would have to be part of their demands, wouldn't you? They're not going to get KD.
No, they're not.
And certainly the Nets are not going to part with KD, but they might be willing to part with Kyrie Irving. And I think
why not? Yeah.
Harden and KD would probably work a lot better than Harden and Kyrie.
Yeah, but is it really what the Nets want, or is it what KD wants? Because maybe KD would work better with James Harden, but does KD want to play with James Harden or with Kyrie?
The way things are, well, you would think he would want to play with his friend Kyrie.
I think he wants to play with both, but you have to remember, look, there's one thing I will give Kevin Durant credit for, is that he's got an ego, and I think he's got a will to win.
Right.
But he's able to play with other stars. He's very efficient. He's way more of an efficient scorer than Westbrook or Harden or any of these guys who rely on multiple shots per game to get it there. He fit in really well on a Golden State team that was loaded with firepower. When you had Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, and
those are two great shooters,
right?
And he was willing to give the ball up. He didn't always
give the ball up
to be the number one scorer.
And before he got hurt in the playoffs, he was there. He was incredibly efficient, and he's no dummy. He's not the youngest guy in the league anymore. So if on a regular season and a normal regular season, if he's on a team that somehow, if the Nets could pull it off and have Harden and Kyrie and Durant, look, one of them's going to get hurt at some point during the year. So now you're always going to have a two-headed monster and possibly a three-headed monster. And Kyrie's the wild card here because Kyrie has had years where, okay, he's won a championship and shown what he can be. He's also Kyrie. Yeah. So if I had to pick between Kyrie and Durant or Harden and Durant, if it was only two of them, well, it's a no-brainer. You take Harden and Durant.
Sure.
And with what the Nets have as far as young players and support, you got to remember, this is a Nets team that did pretty good with none of their
They went to the playoffs and didn't do so well once there, but that was kind of what was expected, I would think.
So I think it's what Harden wants, and I don't think Durant – I think Durant wanted to play with Kyrie. I also think Durant is looking at what happened with the Lakers this year, what's happening with what happened with the Clippers. Maybe two guys aren't enough.
Right. And
he's going, you know what?
Well, especially if one doesn't show up in the playoffs.
Right.
Then two guys aren't enough.
But you know, Harden didn't necessarily show up all that much in the playoffs.
No, he has had something of a playoff playoff history. So,
and I think he's finally realizing, okay, maybe, just maybe, I need to team up with somebody. My window is closing a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. What's Harden, 31, 32 years old? Why not?
Look, if you can bring all three of them in, if you can figure that out, you'd probably have to trade every other player basically on the team, but you're going to get rid of some important pieces. But when you've got those three, you can put a couple of scarecrows out there with them and win a bunch of games.
Sure. So win a bunch of games.
If you can pull that off, if you can pull that off, then why not give it a shot?
Right.
And if it doesn't work, well, then you're going to have Harden for one more year, and then you make a decision about who you want to get rid of, or what you want to do.
And
but
maybe
if you can pull it off, why not take a shot and see? Maybe the three of them can exist together.
I mean, Durant probably could have got more money going to other places. He got paid in Brooklyn, but he could have probably gotten more money if he really wanted. Maybe James Harden will surprise you and say, you know what? It's not about the money right now. It's about, I don't want to be in Houston. I don't like this new head coach. I don't like what's happening here. We have not been able to put the pieces around me to really give him the help to put him over the line. Maybe this is just his come to Jesus moment. He says, "I'll take less money for 1 year, 2 years. Let's see if we can make this work and win a championship."
Right.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun to watch.
Where is his next best place to win a championship?
Other than the Lakers,
that's not out west. Right? Let's say you want to get out of the West.
Yeah.
Well, where's he going to go?
I look. I mean, I think if Harden went to Dallas, Miami. Well, Miami, yes and no. I do think Miami would be good. Boston would be another place.
Boston would be a place.
But he's no dummy. He's like, okay, who's the other than LeBron, who's arguably, and other than the Clippers, because I don't think he wants to go play with Kawhi. It's Durant, and they were this close to getting to the finals and a championship.
Yeah, that's the other thing. They have some history,
and he was the sixth man back then.
Right.
So there's a history there. Look, it would be good for the NBA. Well, it would be good for what's happening in the NBA. These kind of super teams that you kind of can already predict who's going to be there.
Right.
I think overall it would skew things. It would skew things quite a bit, but it would certainly open up the West a little bit more.
Well, yeah, if you can bring those two guys, if you can bring Westbrook and Harden east, then it's going to make the East relevant again.
Yeah.
And more so than, well, geez, Miami might come back. They're keeping that team together pretty much, so they're going to have another shot. Is Toronto going to get another player or take the next step? It's going to bring some legitimacy to potentially a couple of teams out of the East, which would certainly make things a lot more exciting.
Well, Toronto's an interesting team to watch because I think there's a part of Fred VanVleet that wants to stay in Toronto, but I think he wants them to commit to signing in somebody else. And if there's any team that can do it, it's Toronto. But watch Fred VanVleet. That could be the another key for a lot of these teams to add another player that could help put them over the top. But yeah, I mean, only because I want somebody to beat the Lakers. I'll root for Harden and Durant. Because I think if the Nets can keep a modicum, and I think they can because they have a lot of guys who are in their rookie contracts. Right. I think if the Nets can keep some of that depth that they had going on this year, I think they could certainly make a run. It certainly makes them I think it automatically puts them as favorites in the East, don't you?
I would say so.
I would say so, yeah. Look at that. Some NBA talk.
Some good NBA talk.
I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
I just hope I hope we have a season, even if they have to play in a bubble again. I just hope we have a consistent season, even if it's condensed. I just hope it doesn't get broken into two again.
Right. A couple other picks that have popped up. The 14th pick went to the Celtics. Aaron Nesmith.
Oh, love that guy.
Mike Nesmith's son.
Mike Nesmith's son. Yes, came out of Vanderbilt.
He's a believer.
He wouldn't leave her. Even if he tried. All right. Orlando Magic with the 15th pick. Cole Anthony, Greg Anthony's son.
Is it?
He's literally Greg Anthony's son.
Nice.
Yeah.
Where did he play?
North Carolina.
Okay. So I do know who he is.
Hate him.
Greg Anthony, one of the most underrated.
Hate old Tar Heels. They're there. Forget it.
There you go. The 16th pick went to the Trailblazers. Isaiah Stewart. So he came out of Washington. Timberwolves got their second pick at 17. They took Alexei Pokusevski.
The figure skater.
He's from Serbia.
Of the Serbian Pokusevski.
Tell you what, the Serbs are basketball players.
Yeah, not the Croatian Pokusevskis.
The Croatian Pokusevskis. The Serbian Pokusevskis. Yes.
From Secaucus.
From the Serbian section of Secaucus. Then the Mavs just picked just now the 18th pick, Josh Green. He's a native of Australia. He went to Arizona. And the Nets are on the clock.
Who took him?
That would be the Mavericks.
Okay, so he's finally getting out of the desert.
He's getting out of the desert and going to the desert. Yeah. It's not really a desert, just a lot of tumbleweeds.
Yeah.
But so I mean, well, when you're in the city, you don't know it, but once you get out of the city, it's not much. But Nets are on the clock. I don't know. Do we want to wait and see who the Nets pick? I mean, it could be a while. It's just
no. I don't feel like waiting for anything.
I don't either.
No,
I don't know who they're going to take or anything about him anyway. So
yeah, that's true. So
it's not like I'm going to either be excited or upset by the pick.
All right, we'll let it go. All right, folks. That was a good show tonight. Good show. All right.
Thank you, folks.
Have
a wonderful week.
That'll wrap up the show for today. I want to thank everybody for watching. And for those of you listening to the audio podcast, thanks for listening. And don't forget to visit our website, www.loggerroom.com. That's LAGERROOM.com. And please remember, like us and follow us on all of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our YouTube channel. All of them are at The Logger Room. Remember, we go live with the video podcast on both Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. And for those of you that want to just listen to the audio podcast, you can do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, and Stitcher. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to one or more of those feeds and you'll never miss a show. Again, thanks for following along with us. Have a great weekend, and we will talk to you soon, folks. Take care. Have a good one.
Ciao.
Peace.